Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Andry, and I am here with
Rob H.
And Austin Pond.
Yay! Producer Austin here is here. Yes, this is AV Rant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And we actually have our whole three-man crew, and Tom's got a new computer and graphics going, so that's all the reason in the world to come check out the YouTube version if you haven't checked it out before or for a while.
Yes, that being said, I've done some research. Okay, first of all, I called like 3 computer places to fix this computer, and none of them called me back, or have responded to my emails. So I'm a little frustrated. I told Rob before the podcast that one of the reasons the podcast was late this week, it was mostly because I started editing it late because my computer's so slow that I didn't have time. And you say, oh, how slow can it be? It usually takes me about 10 minutes to edit the podcast total from start to export. Now, the exporting takes some time and stuff like that, but everything else. What is going on? I thought I turned this thing to off. Do not disturb. Shut up. Okay, sorry about that. We'll explain that in a second.
Okay.
So, where was I? Oh yeah, podcast. It usually takes about 10 minutes to edit it. It took me an hour and a half to edit it.
Yep.
That was to press the export button, and then it exported, which usually takes around 4 minutes to 10 minutes, depending. It exported for over 6 hours today. It took that long on my other computer.
I don't understand how that's possible, but
I don't either. I thought it's got to be some sort of weird glitch. I'll shut everything down. I'll turn it off. I'll restart it. Blah blah blah. No, still took 6 hours. So I am. So I went back to the other computer, and the other computer still the monitor doesn't work. I'm looking at a black screen right now. That's what I'm looking at. So I connected that up to a second monitor that's like a 27, 24-inch monitor, which doesn't have a stand on it, so it's just because it was wall mounted before, and it is on the couch over there, so I can't see it. I mean, I can, but it's no good to me. And I can't put it on my lap because then I'll be looking down the whole time. You guys will see my retreating hairline. So I decided to get my phone, so now I'm using my phone to read the show notes. This computer's going to be great once I get it fixed. I looked it up. It's either some wire is whatever, but I think the GPU, whatever that is, the GPU, there's a known issue with the solder breaking and getting loose, and it comes loose.
Jeez.
So if you press down on one part of it, it starts up again, and that's what I was doing before. That's basically reseating the GPU.
Wow.
So there was a recall or whatever in Lenovo, because that's what this is, Lenovo, was fixing them or replacing the motherboard or something like that. But I'm not going to be able to do that, obviously. I don't even know.
Well, thankfully, we have Austin here to read the questions for us, so that's a little bit off of Tom's plate this week.
Yes.
So yay.
Yes, for that. That being said, I haven't read any of the questions before right now, so it's going to be very exciting for me, as it is for you. We're going to explore this together. Now, this is AV Rant, the podcast where we do answer your AV and home theater questions, and your questions, to get answered, they have to be asked. You ask us by emailing us at rob@avrant.com for Rob, tom@avrant.com for me, and most importantly, question@avrant.com for Austin, our producer. There's an echo. I can hear it. Who's got their headphones on too loud or something?
I don't think it's me. I'm going to blame our producer.
Austin. Anyways, email Austin at question@avrant.com to get your question onto our podcast list. If you have emailed a question, and at the end of our podcast, between the time that you have asked the question and the next podcast, if you don't hear your name being either read as part of the things that we're answering or saying that we will get to you next week, we either didn't get your question or you sent it in on a Monday. So if one of those two things have happened, then you'll know why. Email us again. You can also go to www.avrant.com and leave us a comment there. Facebook.com/avrantpodcast. It's all one word. Let's see. Twitter @FirstReflect for Rob, @avrant_Tom for me, and @Austin, TEN Pond for our producer Austin, who has his own podcast. It's called We Watch Movies. It's actually a podcast, oddly enough, about echoey audio and how to fix it. So Austin is well prepared to fix whatever the hell's going on his side of this podcast right now.
Yeah, we're going to blame those leaky Cost Porta Pro headphones that he's wearing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Usually the earbuds that I use for recording they quit working the other day, so.
All right. Well, I know people have complained about our relative audio levels during the live thing, so I don't know if this is the way it's coming across on YouTube, but I'll mention that Austin sounds a bit quiet compared to Tom and myself, so I have no idea how I sound. I can't hear myself back through the thing, but yeah, I'll put it in there for all the folks who are going to scream at us after the podcast saying, your audio levels weren't matched.
Yeah, I can't do anything about that right now. We are working on some big changes for AV Rant. You're noticing new logos. I've got a new strip thingy right here that was created by our listener Ash, which I love. I keep looking over that way because that's where I can see it. Hate this. Just the whole time. It's going to drive me nuts. Anyways, Ash, this is fantastic. He's going to be one of our listeners of the week this week for all this great art that he's given us. I'm really enjoying it. I am going to make a T-shirt out of the new logo, and I know James has said that he is interested in having one as well. If you are interested in having one, I don't know, maybe we'll put them on Cafe Press or something like that. Now Austin's leaving. He's just out. I'm done.
He's up and down.
I'm trying to change headphones.
Screw you guys. I'm out of here. All right. So for our listeners of the week, to become a listener of the week, it's a couple of, you just have to support the podcast in some way. A couple of our listeners, Jason, Michael, and Robert, have supported the podcast by going to www.avrent.com and clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link. That link leads to a PayPal donation, and they have either used their PayPal account or a credit card to leave us a donation, which is very appreciated. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Michael.
Yes, thank you, gentlemen, all so much. It is hugely appreciated, and it's awesome that our listeners are so generous, so very cool.
I do want to mention that Robert's from Holland, which I was excited about because I love knowing that we have international listeners as well as local U.S. listeners. And Canadian, I guess, it's local for you. Not that I care about that. All right, we also got to thank Justin, not Bieber, for buying from RBH and mentioning us, as well as Scott B. He ordered from Accessories for Less, and he mentioned us as well, which is fantastic.
Yep, there are the common places. People are starting to get to know us, retailers, that is.
That's what we want. We want them to think, oh, those guys again.
That's right.
What's going on over there? So when Austin says stuff like, my headphones broke, somebody will say, maybe I'll send him some headphones. So that's what we're looking on. All right. Shall we get to the news? Austin, are you reading news too?
Rob, you read the news.
Me? All right. Why not?
I'll read the questions. You read the news.
Okay, let's just throw things around. Well, this one's my alley anyway, because Ascend Acoustics, they're the speakers that I own, the brand of speakers that I own. Dave over there has been developing a new speaker, so they're getting closer to releasing it. It's going to be called the Sierra Sat, and not surprisingly, it's part of the Sierra lineup, and it is a satellite speaker. It's a tiny little thing. It's going to be 10 5/8 of an inch tall, 5 3/4 of an inch wide, and 6 inches deep. It is meant to be wall-mounted. It's front slot ported, but it's like a little brick. The thing's going to weigh about 9 pounds or more. He says it's a very complex crossover and a very complex cabinet, and therefore they might actually end up costing nearly as much as the larger Sierra 2s. There's not necessarily going to be a whole lot of cost savings with these little guys, but it's very cool. If you go over to their forums, you can see a bunch of pictures of the prototypes. He said the prototype has gone extremely well, and basically he doesn't have to make any changes other than futzing with the crossover a little bit more. So you do have to join the forum in order to view images there, but it's free to do so. It's not going to cost anything.
I found that out the hard way.
That's right.
Rob's like, look at the speakers. Like, look, I'm like, must join the forum. I'm like, I'm not joining the forum. Not doing it.
So the pricing is not certain yet. The ultimate name of the thing is not completely certain yet as far as model numbers, but it's on its way. So if you're an Ascend Acoustics fan, keep an eye on that. And staying on the speaker tip, NHT, which is another brand that we recommend frequently, especially their Super Sats. They've basically updated their entire lineup. They used to have a series called the Classic Series. They've rebadged that now as the C-Series. And what do they have there? They've basically got bookshelves starting at about $500 a pair.
Towers at
or $500 each. And towers that are $1,000 each.
So they're already marked down, which is weird.
Yeah, so they're playing right in the same price range as like the SVS Ultra series, but pretty much all of them are three-way designs where they have a tweeter, a dedicated mid-range, and a woofer even in their bookshelf speakers. So that's kind of interesting. But the more interesting one, in my opinion, is the new Media series, which is replacing their what used to be called their Absolute series. These are basically all Dolby-enabled speakers. So they have a tower, a a bookshelf and a separate little module, which is just an upward firing driver. So the tower and the bookshelf have upward firing drivers incorporated into their cabinets. They are using a single driver to do all of the upward firing, though, a single 3-inch driver, or in some cases a 2-inch driver.
For $100, what do you expect?
Yeah, exactly. These are very inexpensive. These are actually even more inexpensive. Wow, that's a weird way. Anyway, they're even less expensive than Onkyo's, which were the previous like cheapo options. So NHT has them beat on that front. I have no idea how they sound, but it's kind of an interesting design that they got there. And they have updated their Super series, so it's Super version 2 now. So I see the Super Sats are like version 2.1. So yeah, that's speaker news.
We'll have to hear those. We need to hear those.
I know. Yeah. NHT has been pretty solid up till now, so excited about these.
I had good experiences with them, so I maybe don't have confidence that they're good. And the prices are right, too. $1,000 for towers. Yeah. Per tower is pretty right there in the ballpark of what you want to see.
Yeah, it's funny because so many companies seem to be hitting these same sort of prices now.
It's always been that way. It's always been that way. Yeah, somebody comes out with like $18.99, pair of tower pair or whatever. Everybody's like, oh, undercutting everybody, are you?
That's right.
By $100.
Unless they don't pay shipping, and then
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, moving on. Roku, they introduced a new streaming stick. It's $50. They say it's 8 times faster than the previous stick. But the cool feature is that they have a new app for both Android and iOS. It's the Roku app, and if you use that, you can actually send the audio for whatever you're listening to on the Roku stick, which is the Roku stick is an HDMI plug, so it plugs into any HDMI port directly on your display or on your AV receiver. Connects via Wi-Fi only. It can't plug in via Ethernet, so that's the reason to still get like a Roku 2 for $70 is if you want to use a wired connection. But now you can send the audio from the stick to the app and use your headphone jack right on your iPhone or on your Android phone and use that as like your wireless audio connection. So the little boxes like the Roku 2 or the Roku 3, they have their little Bluetooth remote, and you can plug headphones into the remote and use that as like your wireless. But with the stick, since the stick doesn't have that feature on the remote that comes with it, you can do it through the app. So that's kind of cool. If you're like listening late at night, you're in bed next to someone who doesn't want to hear what you're doing, just plug your headphones into your smartphone, and the smartphone can take the audio from the Roku stick. Yeah, kind of neat. I like that. It's all right.
At that point, why don't you just stream it to your phone? Just, I mean, why go through the stick at all?
Because the Chromecast is $35, so it's even cheaper. But yeah. And so lastly in the news, FlatPanelsHD, they've done a whole bunch of write-ups on like complete television model lines from some various brands. So they got Samsung, they've got Philips, although they haven't listed the series that we're most interested in, which actually has all the HDR stuff. There was a couple others that they're doing. They're basically hitting everybody as they go along. But Samsung's was the one they just put up most recently, and it's notable because Samsung has a whole bunch of their SUHD models, all of which are supposed to be 4K and HDR compatible. But man, oh man, they decided that, hey, there's North America and there's Europe, and you guys should have different models of TVs, but we should use the same model numbers across both territories, even though the TVs might be different. So there's like KS9000, which is like flat in the States, but curved in Europe. There's like the K9500
So it's not like
series.
little thing.
Yeah, there's like the KS9500 series, which is full array local dimming in Europe, but edge lit in the States because the States has a KS9800 series, which is full array. But then the Europe also has a single like 85-inch KS9800. Like it's just, they are so confusingly all over the place. None of them have Dolby Vision. Almost all of them are edge lit, and like half of them are curved. So it's almost enough for me to go, hey, Samsung, just knock it off. Just knock it off.
We're gonna skip you until your next series comes out and you get this whole model number thing figured out. I hate it when they do stuff like this. It's really hard to. I remember one year. Well, I think Vizio does this too, and probably a lot of them do. But they will have different model numbers, slightly different model numbers for the exact same TV based on where they sell it.
That's right. Like Costco has their own SKU and Walmart has their own SKU.
And that's fine. I understand that, but it's really confusing when you're trying to write these things up and look at them. You're like, what? What's the BU one? Well, that's the one that sold that.
Yeah, what's
Best
the difference
Buy.
between the M60-C1 and the M60-C2? Absolutely nothing.
Just where they sell it. Exactly.
Oh, well. That's it for news.
All right, in comments here, we've got from our listener Chris over on Twitter. He sent us a link to a Sound and Vision article where they compared several HDMI cables attempting to transmit 2160p at 60 hertz with 444 chroma coming from a Samsung. So many numbers. UBDK 8500 Ultra HD Blu-ray player.
Yes. Because that's what the menu spits out.
Right.
It's like, hey,
Oh,
the
just
maximum the maximum possible bandwidth signal, that's what we're going to send to your display, even though when you actually go and play an Ultra HD Blu-ray disc, it will be playing in 24 hertz with 420 chroma subsampling, meaning it's taking up like of the bandwidth of the stupid menu. So a lot of people turned on their Samsung player and were like, I got a blank screen.
Right.
And they're like, well, the workaround is to pop in a disc and wait for it to autoplay, and magically the image appears. So this is explaining why.
So I guess they can't go past 10.2 gigabits per second.
A lot of HDMI cables that were labeled high speed, and as we've been saying, you're not supposed to have to buy new HDMI cables for Ultra HD. They were already, if they were already marked as high speed, they were supposed to be capable of this. But the testing has shown a lot of cables that were marked high speed basically top out at 10.2 gigabits per second. And if you're doing the full fat 4K resolution, 60 hertz, 444 chroma, like 12-bit, which is what the stupid thing is spitting out if you set it in deep color, then you're right up to that 18 gigabits per second limit. So that is what the whole high-speed premium HDMI certification is about. I know that Blue Jeans Cable actually has some of their cables certified fully now with the high-speed premium moniker. They said it's all been certified, but they don't necessarily have the stickers yet to put on their thing. So if you really want it, they will mail you the sticker afterwards. Like they're that solid on it.
There are totally people who want that sticker. I guarantee you that.
Oh,
heck, this is one of the things where you're like, you build your home theater, you got it all set up, and then they come out with a new HDMI cable, and you're just like, what? What am I supposed to do now? No, not everybody put conduit. I didn't put conduit in my wall, and I could have.
No,
but I didn't because it was too much of a pain.
As Blue Jean said, they changed nothing about their cable. They made no changes to the cable they were already selling. So, like, if you already bought a Series 1 HDMI cable from Blue Jeans, it's fine. It's exactly the same as what we're making and selling now. They just got it certified. So, Blue Jeans cable was not included in this little shootout. They had a whole bunch of Audio Quest cables. I have no idea why.
Because they probably said, send us all your cables.
I guess so. So several of those actually did pass the full 18 gigabits per second. So, okay, good on them. They were also like $800 plus. So, little unnecessary.
Seems reasonable.
But what was interesting is like every high-speed HDMI cable, even the ones that were like under $20, they all passed the actual Ultra HD Blu-ray signal, the one that's 24 hertz and 420 chroma. So they all passed that because that's under 10.2 gigabits per second. So if that's what you're really worried about, and it kind of should be, although it would be nice if your player's menu came up from time to time.
Just for variety's sake.
Just to be able to set the thing up, that sort of thing.
Come on, that's what we have tablets for.
Anyway, that's been the situation with HDMI. Ain't it fun?
All right, let's get to the questions for this week.
Austin, you're up.
So, yeah, they're actually all new for this week because they actually got through all of them last week.
That's right.
So, Jonathan F. and Jared F. both had some questions about the recent, perhaps controversial statements that Dr. Floyd Toole made in a recent article. So I kind of combined them into one question. It seems to be Dr. Toole's opinion that two-channel music is inherently inferior to multi-channel music. Using a phantom center is not the same as using a real center. Room measurements and room correction are limited in how useful they can be because your brain's really good at adapting to the acoustics of rooms, including, he thinks, all but the worst possible acoustic rooms. And that treating first reflection points is outdated thinking that only existed in the first place because a lot of studio monitors have really bad off-axis sound. And that you really want the reflected sound because it's good, and that's why concert halls are so reverberant as rooms. And a bunch of other stuff. So, what do we think of all that?
Well, I honestly I started reading that article last week when that question came in because it came in pretty
Yeah, early on.
really early on. So I started reading the article and I got to the point where he started referencing other articles. I'm like, this is a rabbit hole
Mm-hmm.
that I don't want to go down right now. And then I never got back to it. So just going off of that's on the list here, there's some fundamental things that I think that you have to understand when you're talking to somebody of this level. First of all, they're not going to make any statements that are completely committing,
Right.
but they're not going to make any statements that are really off as far as the science behind it. So when you say something like two-channel is inherently inferior to multi-channel, well, just like the center channel, the phantom center is not the same as having an actual center. I don't think that anyone can disagree with that. I'm sure there are people who will, but they'll be wrong because it's just like anything else. If you have dedicated channels that are getting dedicated signals that were designed to go to them, that is better than using some sort of matrixing system. I think that's just a truism. There's nothing. That's just truth. You don't have to look that up or think about it. Would you rather have a multi-channel disc that you use an up mixer to matrix into Atmos, or would you rather have an Atmos mixed disc? Well, of course you would rather have an Atmos mixed disc. Would you rather have a phantom center, or would you rather have an actual center? Well, you'd rather have an actual center. Generally speaking, you would. I don't think that there's anything that is really wrong with what he said there.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is that just by listing the things that we did, and because these are the concerns that were brought up by the people who wrote in about it, it's actually directly something that he addressed in the article, which is that he says a lot of opinions, facts, the way things ought to be are attributed to him. He's like, he does read the things that are, and his name comes up a lot when you go on forums and stuff. People like to throw it around the name Dr. Toole. This is what Dr. Toole thinks. He's like, well, I'm pretty much misquoted or misrepresented an awful lot because he doesn't make these large declarative sentences. He is a scientist. He says, this is the experiment we ran. These are the circumstances under which the experiment was run, and these are the results of the experiment. And here's what we think those results correlate to in real life. It's all this was the circumstance under which we gathered this data, right?
And that's what you do with these kind of studies. You don't say this is truth. You say, in this study at this time with these people in this room with these speakers and this, then this is what we found.
That's right.
I mean,
yeah.
And you go, well, what does that mean? Well, that means that with this material in this room with these people and these speakers in this room at that time with and at that time of day with this amount of background noise, all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's what it means. So
it's
in
like
order
when
for
the
me
circumstance changes, then sometimes the results change too. So it's very important to not take something like treating first reflection points as bad. He addresses that directly in the article. He says, sometimes people say that I say, speaking as Dr. Toole, absorbing first reflections is bad. He goes, but in my own room, I have an open wall on one side, so I heavily treated the other side so that I wouldn't have mismatched reflections from side to side.
Hypocrite!
He's like, obviously, I don't think absorbing first reflections is always a bad idea. He's like,
nerd rage.
Things need to be symmetrical. Things need to be even. What he is willing to say, almost as a generality, is that consistent dispersion is almost always a good thing. So that you don't have super directional speakers that have wildly different off-axis response. If you do that, then he actually says that's when you really do want to absorb any reflections that they create. Because what our brain is good at is saying, I'm getting the same sound coming from multiple directions with slight variations in time and intensity. Right? Which would happen if you have a wide dispersion speaker and a reflection off a side wall. You get the same sound, but one of them is delayed by a couple of milliseconds and it's weaker because it reflected. And he says when that happens, then the precedence effect takes over. Your brain is really good at saying, well, the first and loudest was clearly where the sound originated, and the second one is a reflection. Your brain's really good at that. But then he goes on to say, as you get older and your hearing gets worse and your brain actually becomes less able to filter out a lot of this noise, he says he has now removed himself himself from the listening group because he's too old to hear things the way that a person with quote-unquote normal hearing would hear them. And he says, as that happens, absorbing more of the reflections is helpful because his brain isn't able to filter, or anybody of his age isn't able to filter out the extra sounds as well as when he was young. So now it's helpful to have more direct sound.
Let me tell you something. If you want to see an audiophile get really bent out of shape, tell him that he's too old to hear it anyways. Because believe me, they love that.
Oh yeah,
they love that.
So it's funny because Jared, at the end of it, he was like, "Well, what was the conclusion?" Because this article doesn't like state an end conclusion. The conclusion is stated. It's that it depends. That was ultimately the conclusion. He's like, in certain circumstances, if you're in a recording studio and you really want to nail down the mix, not necessarily for enjoyment, use it as a tool. You only want to hear the direct sound so that you're not making any corrections in the recording that you are manufacturing that include reverberation from the room, because maybe you want to add some reverb electronically or something like that. He's like, then absorb the heck out of the room, have very directional monitors and point them straight at your ears. That's good for that circumstance. But when you bring it home and want to listen to it, we don't like listening in an anechoic chamber. We don't like listening in an echo chamber or something that's ringing really loudly at like 2 or 3 frequencies where that's, the shape of the room made those into room modes. He's like, that we want to eliminate that stuff, and we want to have some reflections because we have our eye and ear and brain system that expects some reflections. And if those reflections have the same timbral match to the direct sound, then our brain is really good at identifying where the sound came from, but we don't have to worry about absorbing those reflections. It's like, he is very level and even-handed in what he's saying. Unfortunately, people want it to be a 10 or a 0, right?
Yeah.
It's all good or it's all bad. That's what a lot of people want. So that's where the confusion comes in.
Well, and if you think about it, all of this makes sense based on what we've said a million times in here, too. And first reflections is like the worst thing to get angry about as far as I'm concerned. Because frankly, it's the easiest thing to test. Because I think you could sit down with him and say, if I bought 2 absorptive panels, and that was it, would I have a use for them? He would say yes. You could, someplace in your room they would be fine. You would probably need them.
I've seen people say, Dr. Floyd Toole says that we shouldn't use acoustic treatments in our rooms.
That's totally not true.
No, he has never said that. Like, his room is treated... And he's like, it depends. He goes, if you're in one of these modern rooms that's like all concrete and glass, then you absolutely need it. If you're in like a 1970s home with like a plush couch and carpeting everywhere, then maybe you don't, because it's a balance of reflected to, direct sound. So yeah, ultimately his conclusion is it depends, which is exactly what we say on this podcast all the time.
It is, and the fact is that you could buy 2 panels, put them at your first reflection points, listen and go, I don't like it, or it sounds better, or can't really tell, but it certainly doesn't seem to be hurting anything. And then there you go. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's something really easy to test. It's not like we're having this subwoofer discussion where, am I going to spend another $700 on a subwoofer? It's a real question that people could be concerned about. Am I going to spend an extra $30-$40 on a panel, or maybe $100 on the panel? It's really something not to get so bent out of shape about. And like you said, I mean, I think it's hilarious that his room is a lot like Gene's, and that he's got it open on one side, so he treats the heck out of the other wall. Well, of course that's what you're going to do, and that's what we would, if he had come to us. Yeah, that's what we would have said. That's what you should do, Dr. Toole.
We do appreciate his research. It has been very revealing.
Absolutely.
I just want to, on the last thing was on the center channel tip. One of the things is that he is always doing these tests, well, I shouldn't say always, but almost always doing these tests with groups of listeners. So, of course, when you're doing something like stereo imaging with a group of listeners, a phantom center isn't going to work so great. And like I've said, there is the one guy sitting in the money seat who's like, these electrostatic speakers sound great when I sit here, but not so great when I sit in the other 20 seats that are spread out around the room. So it's like, if you have a center channel, then the center image is always locked to the center position in the room, regardless of where you're sitting in this group setting. But if you have the one-man theater and you only ever sit in one spot, it's like stereo imaging works. So,
same thing with having multiple subs. If you're the only dude in there, you probably only need one sub, especially if you have lots of flexibility in your sub placement where you can do the subwoofer crawl. You don't need all this. You don't need this dual subs and all this other stuff. It's all conditional. How many times on this podcast? What was it, the Bizarro Theater just a couple of weeks back, where I was
That's
like,
right.
everything you're saying is wrong, but it works, so I guess leave it alone.
But not wrong, just
But,
unconventional.
not unconventional, not what we would recommend in most cases, which is
in most
great.
cases. But
That's great. All right, next.
yes.
Richard took our recommendation and ordered a pair of Yamaha NSAW 592 speakers for his pergola.
Yeah.
Amazon had them for $185 a pair compared
Woo.
to $250 at Parts Express and B&H, so he went with that.
Nice.
And he was also able to save on shipping and border fees into Canada and all that because conveniently right now his parents are in Philadelphia. So he had them shipped there and they're going to bring them back with them when they come back to Canada.
I don't have anything against Philadelphia, but why are you in Philadelphia
They have
at this time
family
of year?
there, he said.
Okay,
There
okay,
you
good.
go.
I'm like, I can understand coming to Florida or the Keys or the Caribbean or something like that, but you're in Canada.
Philly residents,
You go down to Philly. Well, I'm not saying it's a bad place. I'm saying it's April. I'm not sure that's prime Philly visiting time. I don't know when it is, but it seems like it wouldn't be April. But I'll tell you what though, I would straight up kill somebody for a real honest to goodness Philly cheesesteak because I love them down here and I feel like I'm not having the real stuff, so I would love to go up there and get one of those. So
there you go.
On my bucket list. Go on.
He already has the Sonos Connect amp that he's going to use, so the only thing he has left to buy is speaker wire.
Mm-hmm.
So what should he look for in terms of gauge, waterproofing, anything else? He doesn't want to overpay for better wire than he actually needs.
Sure.
How long is the run? Do we know? It's not that long, is it?
He didn't say exactly. He was looking at like a spool of 100 feet total, so I'm guessing
For
not
two
more
speakers,
than
so
50
it's
feet each.
Not more than 50 feet for each one. So yeah. So he gave us a link to like a 14 gauge. What is it? Underground speaker lighting wire.
Yeah.
So
direct burial.
yeah. So that's, I guess, fine, I suppose. I don't see
Yeah,
anything
well,
wrong
there's two sides of it, right? Because he is going from the inside of his house through a wall to the outside, right?
Yeah.
So in-wall rated stuff is all the in-wall ratings for on wires is about fire safety. They're like, if this catches on fire, it must take at least an hour to burn through the jacket. Like, that's all they care about. And then on the outside, the burial rating is basically all about waterproofing. Because they're like, we don't care if it catches on fire, it's underground, but it has to be this waterproof so that it doesn't short circuit. So he kind of needs a combination of both. And thankfully, Belden, which is like a huge speaker wire manufacturer.
No, they don't just
made
use
in the
speaker
USA.
Wire.
But
Yes,
cables,
wire.
wires, anything. Pretty much anything made out of copper. They have their Belden Brilliance wire, which is both in-wall and burial rated, which is like perfect for a speaker wire that is going from inside your house through a wall to the outdoors. So it is a little bit more expensive than the first one he's considered. I see no reason to, like, 16 gauge would be fine because these are outdoor speakers. So 16 gauge would be fine. 14 gauge, if you're gonna go over 50 feet per run, maybe I'd tip you up to 14 gauge wire for that. But honestly, you're never gonna hear it. I mean, it's the highest of the high treble that begins to get attenuated if the resistance of the wire due to the length gets too high. It's like you're never gonna hear it in an outdoor speaker. So 16 gauges.
You're never going to hear it anyways, but you're certainly never going to hear it in an outdoor speaker whose sole job it is to not be obtrusive in its playing of music. Yeah. So maybe you should get 24 gauges so it rolls off the highs for you anyways. Save you some money,
even
and
then
you get some
probably never hear it.
Yeah, I don't think you'd hear that either. Exactly right. I think he's probably got like a 12-foot run or something like that because he's going right to the wall if he put it where we told him to.
Yeah.
So I bet he doesn't have 12 feet on that thing. He could probably get 32 gauge wire. It's like it'd be so thin. It'd be so thin you could just slip it right through another hole that's already there. Yeah, you're fine. Any wire that's got the right rating would be absolutely fine. So yeah. Size-wise, I would not worry about size at all. Next, what is it? Is it next? Are we at next yet? We're at next.
That'll do it.
Yeah, he's got a few more questions. Does he need banana plugs?
No. Go on.
Need them.
Should he get
Are you
banana plugs?
I wouldn't. The outdoor speakers usually have some sort of thing around the speaker terminals, right?
Yeah, and it's very often spring clips, although these Yamahas actually do have like plastic binding posts. So it does look
I
like,
would just wrap that around there and tighten it down and
yep.
never look back.
Because you're
That
not
would be
like
it.
banana plugs are all about convenience. Like I love having banana plugs on the back of my receiver because I have 11 speakers to connect, and trying to do all that with bare wire and going in from the side and screwing down, like it's just a pain. So I would rather
It's not.
terminate
It's
them.
literally painful because you usually end up stabbing yourself underneath the fingernail at least
That's right.
once. If you have like 12 or 10 gauge, God help us, 10 gauge wire like you and I probably have, you're like, oh, you're like, oh, this is only the second speaker. It's going to happen at least two more
That's
times.
right.
It's the
But
worst.
when you're just hooking up two speakers and you're not going to be unplugging them on a regular basis or anything like that, I'm like, there's no. You could if you get banana plugs. I'm not going to slap your hand because they're convenient and easy, but you do not need them. No.
I would say if you wanted to use on the Sonos side, that
Sure.
might be something to do. But
Sure.
even then, I think that would be more for looks than it would be for anything
Yeah,
else.
absolutely.
I just like the way banana plugs look, so I would be okay with that. But
Sure.
really, you don't need it. I would bare wire connection is perfect right here.
Yeah.
Next.
Does he need to do any extra waterproofing on the speaker terminals? He found stuff called Coax Seal tape that you can wrap around stuff like that. Does he need that? Does he need anything like that?
Is it actually made of seals? Because that would be so awesome.
No,
It's a Canadian product made of seals.
You just to seal things, hominin.
Oh well, no, I don't see any reason for you to do this.
No,
you
I mean,
could.
I'd go with whatever the Yamaha manual suggests, but I mean, these things are going to be up against his house. Like the back of the speaker is going to be up against his house. It's got a pergola, which is a little bit of cover, and these are like plastic binding posts. There should be. If you're worried about it, maybe throw some electrical tape around it. Like that. That's all you need.
Well, even then, I don't think. I mean, leave yourself an extra couple of inches of wire, and if you're really worried about corrosion at the end of it, they're not. It's not. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's going to be fine.
Ultimately, yeah.
Don't spend any extra money. We're going to save you money pennies at the time.
That's
Next.
We frequently mention sites like Accessories for Less and Parts Express, but how good are they in shipping to Canada?
Well, they'll ship it there.
Well, Accessories for Less won't.
Oh, they won't? I didn't know that.
No,
Oh, that's right.
That is an unfortunate thing. Yeah, we do like to mention Accessories for Less. They do not ship to Canada, so that is a sad thing for us.
So is that electronics for less? Is that what you use up there? Is that what it is?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're a completely separate company.
Yeah,
so
I understand
we
that.
don't really have an equivalent to Accessories for Less up in Canada because Accessories for Less is primarily about direct from manufacturer refurbished products, and we don't really have an equivalent for that in Canada, unfortunately. So that one's out, but Parts Express, they have very good shipping to Canada. They're very similar to B&H Photo, where they show you the full landed price beforehand. Often when you're buying, because Parts Express, you tend to be buying smaller things very often. It's like you're buying wire or individual drivers or things like that, and quite often the shipping costs more than the thing you just bought.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the way it goes. So Amazon, if you can get it from Amazon.com as opposed to Amazon.ca, Amazon.com has some of the cheapest shipping to Canada out of anybody because they're Amazon and they kind of get those deals. So I do tend to look there first when I have to buy something from the States because Amazon makes it pretty darn easy. But Parts Express is also good. Yeah.
Next.
Bob mentioned several Canadian websites last week, and in the show notes, he added one more, which is justoncable.ca for inexpensive cables and accessories. Richard wanted to recommend another similar site, which is CablesOnSale.ca.
Yeah, I didn't know about these guys, so I'm glad he did. They basically resell Monoprice products. That's what Cables on Sale. I mean, almost every SKU in their lineup is Monoprice brand. So they're trying to be the Monoprice of Canada. They are reselling Monoprice products. That's about it.
Next.
So, Jason.
I am loving this. This whole next thing is awesome.
Last week we
I need a
discussed
buzzer.
Yeah, you do. You need a bell or a buzzer or something. A trap door to drop me through. Last week we discussed Jason's speaker placement in his 15 by 13 room and whether or not he should buy some used Polk RTI 6 speakers to expand to a 7.1 setup. He says that reading between the lines, it sounds as though his money would be better spent on all new speakers. He was thinking of doing this within a couple of years anyway, and although he's happy with his Polk setup, he hasn't really compared it to anything else for the past 15 years or so, so he doesn't really know what he's missing. He's willing to consider speakers costing as much as $1,000 a pair, and he doesn't plan on buying them all at once. Since he's primarily looking to replace his current surround speakers, should he start there,
Nope.
or should he start by replacing his mains? And what would we
Yes.
recommend in the price range?
EMP Tech and start with the mains, and you could for $1,000. I think you could get some surrounds too. I think so.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. He's currently using large bookshelf speakers as his fronts. If he sticks with bookshelf speakers, $1,000 a pair, like the world is your oyster, man. You
Yeah, you got a lot of options.
of options. Because if it has to be $1,000 per pair for towers, then your options are definitely more limited. But he's already got stands. He's already using bookshelf fronts. His room certainly doesn't require having tower speakers just from an output perspective. So you've got tons of choice here for $1,000 per pair of bookshelf speakers. Yeah.
If he wants to stick with towers. If you don't, you could do the EMP Tech towers, and then
Sure.
Those are what, $700 a pair.
Yeah, $750 basically a pair
Yeah. And
for towers. You don't need those for output concerns, though.
you don't, but they're pretty.
Yeah.
They're pretty. But for $1,000 a pair for bookshelf speakers, there's just a plethora of options out there. Every single major speaker manufacturer is gonna have a bookshelf pair that's going to be right around $500 or $1,000 or both. Those are just the price points. We were just talking earlier about how everybody's hitting this $2,000 price point for towers. That's sort of like one of those magic numbers that everybody is looking at. So yeah, I mean, really at this point, it's like, can you help us whittle it down? Can you go to your local store and go listen to some stuff and tell us, oh, I like this one and I didn't like that one, or something?
Yeah, I mean, certainly a lot of the store brands, the ones that we often recommend, KEF, I'd certainly go listen, like the Q-Series, even their largest bookshelf speakers, easily going to be in this price range. Go ahead and listen to some Klipsch reference series, because they're going to fit in this price range too. Even like Martin Logan and their Motion series, something like that. So as far as store brands go, I mean, your PSB, Paradigm, anything that's going to be carried in a store, go ahead and audition it, because they'll have $1,000 per pair of bookshelf speakers somewhere in their lineup. But as far as if you want to audition stuff at home, I mean, go for the ones that pay shipping both ways, because there's no reason not to. So SVS, their Ultra series, it's $1,000 per pair for their bookshelf speakers and that. Aperion, their Veris Grand bookshelf speakers are under $1,000 a pair.
I was just looking that up.
Yep, both of those companies pay shipping both ways, so there's no reason to not try them. And both of those are good speakers, so you might find that you really, really like them. I will, of course, mention Ascend Acoustics. You could go either for their large CMT 340 SE speakers, which are like $550 a pair, so way under budget, or you could try their Sierra Ones, which are like $800 to $850 depending on finish per pair. So I mean, all of our favorite internet brands, NHT that we just mentioned, they got their new Classic series, their new Classic or C-Series bookshelf speakers, the three-way bookshelf speakers. They're $1,000 a pair. So, you're spoiled for choice in this, which I guess, obviously, he's going to ask, well, if I'm spoiled for choice, then what do you guys say I should buy? But
well, he's going to say Sierra 2s, and I'm going to say Veris Grands. And then we're both going to agree that you could save some money, go with cheaper speakers, and get a big upgrade for $1,000 with something like EMP Tech, where you could literally just replace almost everything in there for $1,000.
Yeah,
at least a 5.0 system, not 7.
But I mean, from EMP Tech, they do have RBH's MC series, which
true.
Again is in this price range.
That's true.
So yeah, I mean, the thing is, all of the brands we just mentioned are like, I would have zero problem with you choosing any of them. So it would be helpful for you to hear. I mean, you're saying you really haven't gone speaker auditioning for like 15 years, not like critically listening to them to decide what you want to buy. So there is some personal preference in this. Some people are going to prefer one of these choices over another. So definitely start with the ones that pay shipping both ways, because there's no reason not to do that. And definitely go out to any local stores. Yeah,
definitely go to local stores and then consider the shipping both ways thing, because you do have to float that on your card.
But as long as you have it back before your monthly statement's allotted time.
Yeah, but still.
Unless you have one of those crazy cards that charges you interest from the moment you make a purchase, but don't
have
one of those cards. Just don't do
that would be our other recommendation. Don't do that. So
There
next.
you go. Flooded.
You got to listen to some stuff if it's been that long since you've heard speakers.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And unfortunately, it's an intimidating thing, I know, because, I've heard a ton of speakers, and even now people are like, oh, I remember when you listened to those Snells? Nope. I mean, at the time, they were the most expensive speaker I'd ever viewed. And I think I remember being very, very impressed with them. But I couldn't tell you what they sound like. And you're talking 15 years?
Yeah.
That was like 8 years ago. So, yeah, man, you got to get out there and just have some fun with. Make a day of it. Go out there, listen to some speakers, and if you've got a significant other who's interested in doing it with you, that's even better. Make it, go out, listen to some speakers, go to lunch, listen to some more speakers, and then have something to talk about.
Yeah.
Then you can get, at the same time, order in a couple of these, shipping both ways. Aperion doesn't do shipping both ways, right?
They sure do.
They do? Okay, great.
And they have
you
a
should get
60-day trial now, so they went beyond the 45-day trial of SVS.
get those two in, and then see how you feel about those. If you fall in love with one, and then you can consider. I mean, I think the CR2s are probably. I haven't heard them myself. I heard the CR1s and liked them. You can remember reviewing.
Well, the CR2s are over his price range. They're closer to $1,500 a pair.
Oh, the CR1s is what I mean. Whatever
the
it was. The CR1s are a fantastic little speaker too.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's probably changed since I've listened to him. I'm sure he's made modifications to them since then.
Not really.
I don't think so.
No, I mean, we've had people go out and they've listened to like Golden Ear and Klipsch and gone, neither of those are for me because they have a characteristic sound and it didn't float my boat. At the same time, we've had people go listen to Golden Ear and Klipsch and go, I loved this one or I love the other one. You do need to hear them because, people who've listened to B&W, they're like, oh, I love these B&W speakers, and the other people are like, it wasn't quite as neutral as I wanted it to be. So there is some personal preference in there, and there's nothing wrong with that. So
Wherever you buy a local speaker from, though, make sure that they have you lock down the return policy.
Yeah.
If you go to one of these specialty shops that have like Monitor Audio and Paradigms and stuff like that, which will all be good speakers for you to hear as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just see what their return policy is. They might charge a restocking fee or something like that, and you don't want to get suckered into all that. But you do want to be able to hear them in your house, and hearing them at the store is one thing. Bringing them home and setting up, you might go, nope, I don't know what I heard at that store, but I'm not hearing it here. So, do we know what this guy's receiver is? Does he need a receiver upgrade if he hasn't listened to speakers in 15 years?
I think
he mentioned it before or not.
Okay, well, whatever. Also consider budgeting for a receiver upgrade if you haven't done it recently to get something like Odyssey or the newer Y-Pals or something like that, because that's also going to make a sonic difference that you're going to be able to appreciate, especially once you get those dual subs. You could get the stuff that helps calibrate the subs. That's really going to help too. So you have a lot of stuff to think about, and we'll love to help you think about it. And next,
Raj is a new listener, but is a friend of one of our longer time listeners, Ilongo, who convinced Raj to finally start listening. He'll be moving into a new apartment where he'll be living for the next year or so for work, and needs our advice on a good budget-friendly TV. Ideal size is 40 to 50 inches with a price around $500. He's heard us mention Vizio before, but are there any other brands he should consider as well?
No, you could probably consider them all, but you can consider any of them that you like. But price range-wise, you're 50 inches.
Yeah.
You should be able to get quite a few things out. I would imagine he's not so worried about 4K if he's only looking at 50 inches. So, but
although
these
that's
days,
almost within reach with Vizio.
yeah, that's very close. So you're going to end up with 1080p, or maybe bumping your price up to Raj, if it were me, I'd be going 1080p all the way. Unless you're going to be parking yourself within arm's reach of this 50-inch screen, you do not need 4K. I don't care how much the salesman says you do. You do not.
No, I mean, Wirecutter has done quite a few comparisons, including what pointed out as their best $500 TV, which was a Vizio, And then second choice was a Samsung, which was like their J5500 series or JU 5500 series, which is being phased out now in favor of the new 2016 models that are coming in. But basically, the Vizio won out because, as we've been saying, they've got full array local dimming, which gives them higher contrast, better black levels, and the prices. No one is matching their prices for low prices for those sizes. So it's hard to not recommend a Vizio at this point when that's what you're going for. Value, that type of size, and just a darn good-looking TV.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of reason to consider anything else.
Really, if you're shopping for a TV right now, the things that you need to be worried about, it really has to do with this whole full array local dimming and how many zones they have. That's a reason to pay more for TV than anything else that's on the market right now until HDR really hits. Where HDR is starting to get there, but it's not there yet, and it's certainly not there at the $500 price point. So, you really want to look at that. You don't want those edge-lit displays. Hey, if you're looking at a computer monitor, edge-lit the crap out of it. Who cares? I mean, if you're going to be unless you're going to be watching a lot of TV on it, or you're going to use it as your main monitor, it doesn't matter. If you're all doing spreadsheets and WordPress, it doesn't matter. But
and the super high-end edge-lit ones, the multi-$1,000 high-end ones, I mean, they can make edge lighting look fairly decent. But when you're talking in the lower price range, they just don't. They put one strip along the bottom and call it a day, and it doesn't look great.
So what you're really looking for here is that full array, as many zones as you can get.
Sure.
And unfortunately, or fortunately for us, because it makes it easy for us, unfortunately for you, your options are Vizio, and, oh yes, right, Vizio. So, there you go.
Yep.
Enjoy Ross. Next!
He also wonders, in the Vizio line, apart from the number of dimming zones, are there any major differences between the various E, D, and M series models?
Yeah, there sure are. Yeah, I mean, particularly now, if you're looking at the brand new 2016 models, of which the E and M series in 2016 are still yet to be released. But they are now doing their whole SmartCast thing, which means all your menus and setup is done on a tablet or a smartphone. In the case of the new 2016 E-Series, you kind of have to have a smartphone because they don't give you a tablet with the E-Series. Now, the 2016...
Grandma with her flip phone going, I can't make my TV work. That's just not right.
Yeah, the 2016 E and M series are all 4K resolution. So you kind of get it whether you want to or not. So that's actually why they introduced the D series. It came in before these models. The D series, some of the models are 1080p, some of the models are 4K. Not surprisingly, the 1080p versions are less expensive. They have a 50-inch 4K and a 50-inch 1080p model in the D series. But the D series is still a regular television with a regular remote and regular apps built into the TV, and it still has a tuner. If that's important to you, the new E and M and P series have no tuner in them. And if you're looking for like a temporary, I'm thinking he might be plugging this thing into an antenna or clear QAM cable.
Right, sure.
So you kind of want a tuner. So in your case, also just a matter of price, the D series actually makes the most sense. If you can get one of the older 2015 E or M series, then they're still around sometimes. But the D series is great, and it's affordable, and it's still got a tuner and a remote.
I didn't think about tuners. I forgot they got rid of those things.
I know, it's weird. They're not even TVs anymore. They're monitors.
I really supported them when they got rid of 3D, but I'm not so supportive of this because this is going to end up costing us down the line. And frankly, this whole selling a TV that you have to have a smartphone for without giving you some sort of tablet or way of getting it really feels like a plot between them and Best Buy or whatever to upsell you a tablet at the same time as your...
Well, not if you get the M or the P series, they come with the tablet.
That's true, but that's what I'm saying. That one line, the E-series is one. That
it is, the new, brand new.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't approve of that. I'm hoping that somebody like Harmony or something like that will have a...
Yeah, I mean, you can still do the basic controls. It's just the finer things are all in the app now.
Yeah. If it came home in movie mode or cinema mode or whatever with the normal warm or whatever it is, then I think that would be fine and we wouldn't do anything. But that's not what's going to happen. I would say, what we got next?
Tyler has Golden Ear Invisa speakers, which have a high frequency EQ control physically on the speakers. The manual says to set it to the minus side in highly reflective rooms, which sound overly bright, and to the plus side in plush rooms, which sound too dull. Should he make any use of these controls, or should he keep it set in the center neutral position and leave the EQing to Odyssey?
Well, yeah, I would set it neutral, run Odyssey, and if I felt I needed some change, I would make some. I would never touch that thing. That's exactly what would happen. I am telling you that you should set it neutral and then run it and then test it. I'm telling you right now, I would never touch that thing. I'd put it to neutral. I would forget it existed.
I gotta
First
be
of all,
honest.
overly
Sorry,
plush rooms. Overly plush. This is a problem that we have. Where are you putting these speakers?
It's more like heavily off axis because these are in ceiling speakers. So if you are way off axis from them, then you're not going to get as much high frequency, and so boosting the highs might make it sound. I mean, yeah, but I mean, hey, no, that's the language they said.
Overly plushed room. All I can see is like a 70s carpeted wall, round bed that spins bedroom thing going on, you know, with the music. You know what I'm saying.
No,
Pizza Boy arrives.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, my honest opinion of these high-frequency selector switches, because these are present on several speakers, I think it's mostly placebo. Because almost all of them are like plus minus 2 or 3 dB, which is like barely noticeable on the best of terms. I mean, these are mostly here on in-wall and in-ceiling speakers. Primarily, it's to deal with the off-axis thing. So if you're way off axis or you're directly on axis, then sometimes there's a little bit too little or too much high frequency energy that reaches your ears. That's what it's supposed to be there for, but given that it's almost always like plus minus 2 or 3 dB, I'm like, it's mostly placebo.
Yeah, I've had some speakers that you can audibly hear a difference when you.
Yeah, well, you can usually show it in a measurement.
Well, no, I'm you know, when you're standing next to it, you make the switch. Like those speakers that the Jansen speakers, that little knob thing with the tweeter on the side, that was a massive difference. Now the others, whatever, I think there was another switch that was, and this is exactly what I'm saying, another switch that was like this, I don't remember what it was for, but I was like, oh, there's another switch back here. I had set it to neutral or whatever the middle setting was, and had forgotten about it. And let Odyssey take care of it. You know, that's just sort of, I think, the best way to go.
Yeah, I know. For in-ceiling speakers like this, I'd totally just leave it neutral. And then, like Tom says, if you're listening to it and you're like, you know, there's some sparkle up in the high frequencies I feel like I'm missing, then go ahead and plus the darn thing. But you should be fine.
Sparkle.
I don't know what else to call it.
All right.
Shimmer, shine, air.
Looks like we got Infinite Gary next.
Yeah.
By the way, Infinite Gary does not have a job. Isn't that what he said? He doesn't have a job?
He replied back.
He's retired.
He's retired.
He's retired. That is awesome, Gary. You are so... I hope that when I am retired, I'm doing exactly what you're doing right now, which is infinitely tweaking my setup. Because that's...
Might as well.
I mean, that's what my hobby is right now,
do?
And I can't do it as much as I want to. I think this is great. It's great that you're retired. That's fantastic. That makes this whole thing make a lot more sense too. So let's go with that. All right, go on. Infinite Gary.
So Gary is formulating the 2017 toy budget, as he calls it. He wonders, what's our guess on the price of 2017 models of 65-inch OLED TVs, and how long until such TVs drop to $2,000?
So the 2016s that are just rolling out like now and in the coming months, so the highest end, the G6 65-inch is $8,000 MSRP. The E6 below that is $7,000 MSRP. And the B6 and C6 that'll be coming out shortly for the 65-inch size are MSRP of $6,000, just like last year's were. So last year's OLEDs, the ones that are 4K and HDR, although they were only HDR10 last year in 2015, they're now selling for $5,000. And they've gone on sale for $4,500 at some points. But they did have an MSRP of $6,000 when they first came out. So essentially, prices have remained flat for OLEDs this year. The prices haven't come down, and in fact, the luxury models have gone up in price. But you can be pretty sure that all of those will be cut by about $1,000 within a few months. And I'm guessing by the end of 2016, you'll probably see some 65-inch OLEDs for like $4,500, $5,000 again. So in 2017, I'm going to go out on a limb and say LG seems to be increasing their yields. They're starting to sell panels to other manufacturers who are, rejiggering them and putting their brand name on it. I do think there will be some downward price movement. So in 2017, I'm guessing you can get a 65-inch OLED for $4,000. That's my guess.
Seems reasonable to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would not disagree with that. That being said, yeah, we're still, for 65 inches, we're still 3 years away from that. 4 years, maybe 5.
Yeah, well, I'm like David Katzenmeyer, who's pretty darn knowledgeable about TVs over at CNET. He's like, he doesn't figure we'll have 65-inch OLEDs for, what he's saying is equivalent to like a similarly priced full array local dimming LCD, which would be like the Vizio P-Series, which is $2,000 right now. He's like, 2019, 2020. He's like, that's probably about when it'll be. So yeah,
4 or 5 years.
4 years, yeah.
All right.
I think it's about right.
What else?
Gary listens to podcasts on his MacBook Pro through a pair of Advent speakers connected to the headphone output. Mm-hmm. One day it was working, and then the next morning, sometime last week, there was a loud buzzing in the speakers.
Yeah.
He tried connecting headphones, and the buzzing was still there.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't play through the built-in speakers, but he doesn't like to use those because they don't sound very good. And he already owns a dongle that takes digital audio and turns it into a 2-channel analog. And he tried that. The buzzing also isn't there. So what's the issue, and what can he do about it?
It's
now, I will say,
built-in headphone amp, yeah.
Yeah, your headphone amp did get broke. You broke it.
I had exactly the same problem on the MacBook I had in college, except in the line-in jack. Because back then they still had 2 jacks. I think they're just 1 now. And there's nothing you can do. It's just broken. That's it.
Yeah. I guess you can take it.
I guess you could have Apple repair it, but I don't think it's worth that.
Yeah, not when you've already got a USB dongle that he was talking about. So
yeah, that's what I did. I got a USB.
Yeah. I had a similar problem happen to me with my new desktop computer, and it was the cable. And it was easy to fix. I switched to cable. Okay?
Right.
My boss was like, the speakers are making weird noises. I'm like, what? She goes, when did this start? She goes, I don't know, last week. I'm like, what did you do? She goes, oh, I just turned it off. Unplugged it or something. I think I did both. I'm like, what? Okay, fine. And see, that's the sort of thing that you can wake me up for. You can wake me up to tell me that the speakers on the computer are no longer working. I will wake up and fix that right away. Anyways, it was the cable. But this is not the cable. This is the headphone jack. You got a solution for it, so keep doing that thing that you're doing. I don't blame you. Trying to listen to a podcast or anything through those speakers on your MacBook is awful.
Yeah. All right.
So Will took our advice from a few weeks back, and he's going to put a love seat about 10 feet from his projection screen. This was the guy that had like the 2 rows of seats. It was too far away and didn't know where he was going to put he had problems with the size of the screen or something, I think, wasn't it? So he's going to make the love seat the primary seats. So he's only going to be 10 feet back now.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to have the couch on a riser behind the love seat, since doing this will allow him to have the projector mounted closer to the screen. Oh yeah, because he didn't want anybody hitting their head on the projector.
That's right.
So he can use the BenQ HT 2050 to create the 120-inch screen size that he wants, and it's all working out nicely.
Yay!
He wants to put the couch on an 8-inch tall riser, and he figures the couch itself needs to be about 3 feet from front to back. So how much should the riser extend in front of the couch?
It's the same as creating a walkway, either 2.5 or 3 feet. So normally we say if you have 2 rows of seats, have your front row and then leave yourself either 5.5 or 6 feet for the second row. And so that ought to work. just fine. So yeah, if you want a little bit more space, then have a 6-foot deep from front to back riser. That way the 3 feet is taken up by the couch itself, and then have 3 feet to actually walk on in front of that. But 2.5 feet is acceptable if that's how close you want to put things. I wouldn't go less than 2.5 feet, so either 5.5 or 6 feet should be the size of your riser from front to back. And then obviously wide enough to, hold the couch. Seems Tom's having technical problems, but that one, I don't think he would disagree with me, so we can go on to the next part.
So Silver Ticket offers screens in both gray and white. Which one should you choose? He has good light control, it's pitch black at night, and still very dark during the day.
Yeah, so white.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, the reason for a gray screen, and I know Ray Coronados might disagree with me on this because he's kind of a fan of still using gray screens once in a while, but the main reason for the gray screen was to lower your black level. That was sort of the primary goal of the thing. So when we were dealing with early LCD projectors that had really poor black levels, it did help to have a gray screen that would lower that overall, and usually light output wasn't the problem, so you could still get bright highlights. But my issue with a gray screen is that it tinges everything gray. And I mean, I know there are other people like, oh, you can calibrate for that in your projector, and your eye is pretty good at saying, well, if it's bright, then it's probably white. But I have never seen a gray screen where I didn't notice that whites were a little bit gray. And given that, like the HT 2050, okay, does it have as deep black levels as a JVC projector? No, it does not. It does not have black levels as deep as a Epson 5030 or a Sony HW40. Those both give you darker black levels. And in a pitch black room or a very dark room during the day, if you put them side by side and you're very nitpicky, then yes, you can see that those more expensive projectors produce deeper blacks. But the 2050 gives you pretty darn good black levels. It gives you very good contrast. So I'm like, there's no reason to go for a gray screen anymore, in my opinion. I know there are people who disagree with me. It doesn't make them wrong. It is a matter of opinion. But I'd say we're sticking with white. Oh, Tom and his technical issues. I think we're okay. I know Tom would say white, and you know what gain he would say too. So,
You want me to go ahead then?
I believe we should. We're carrying on. For the folks who are listening to the audio-only version, there are some technical issues going on. If you're watching the YouTube stream, Tom has dropped out, and I'm sure he'll be back in shortly. For some reason, he couldn't hear Austin and I, but Austin and I can hear each other, so we're pretty sure things are going along just fine.
He's planning to get rid of his DLP rear projection TV that he has right now, but he still wants to use a flat panel for watching TV while mostly using the projection setup for movies. His plan is to have the flat panel and a Yamaha soundbar on a rolling cart that he can simply wheel in front of the screen when he wants to use just the TV. As such, he wants to put his center speaker on a stand or a shelf below the projection screen. His Energy Center is rear ported, so is there a minimum distance for how close he can put the back of the speaker to the wall? He'd like it to be as close as he can put it to allow as much space as possible for the cart with the TV.
Yeah,
so could you guys hear me before, or did I just drop off?
Well, at some point you stopped talking, and we couldn't hear that, but we weren't talking over each other at any point, so I think we're okay.
Okay.
Anyway, I answered 2 of the questions, and I don't think you'll disagree, so...
I'm sure I wouldn't.
We're on to the rolling cart.
Yeah, the rolling cart.
How close can you put the speaker?
Well, you could put it right on the wall to make it. I mean, you can. You can put it outside the room if you really wanted to. You put it in the closet. It wouldn't be a very good idea, but you could. Couple of 18 inches. 18 inches is good.
18 inches.
Yeah.
It could be closer to the wall than
I'm
that.
just saying, 18 inches is plenty.
Nobody wants to roll a cart in front of the center speaker.
Oh. Well, in front of the center speaker, why would you want to do that?
Well, because it's only like once in a while he's going to bring in the flat panel.
Wouldn't you want to roll that behind the center? Why would you roll it in front of?
Because he's going to use a sound bar instead for just TV watching.
Oh, well, then you could push it back, 6 inches, 12 inches? I mean, 10?
I mean, honestly, most manufacturers say the minimum clearance for that rear port is 1 inch. That's what most manufacturers say.
That's pretty close.
It's like that's as close as you can go. They're like, don't literally flush mount it when it has a port on the back, but a lot of them say you can put it within an inch. It will change the sound a bit. It'll get more bassy. Some of them say, oh, leave about 3 inches if you can. But honestly, 1 to 3 inches, it's not like it'll stop the speaker from working or damage it in any way. You will probably hear it if you play it really loud and there's air coming out the back of the port and you have it like half an inch away from the wall. But yeah, honestly, like 1 to 3 inches is fine. It'll change the sound a little bit. You'll have some more bass coming from that center speaker. But yeah.
Would it make any difference putting some kind of acoustic material behind, like a piece of an acoustic panel behind it if it's that close?
You can, but the issue is that what's really affected is like 250 hertz and lower. That tends to be what's affected.
So you might as well, the size of the thickness of the panel, you might as well mount it further away.
You need like a 4 or 6 inch thick panel to affect those frequencies, and then now you're 4 or 6 inches away from the wall, aren't you? So, yeah.
I think 6 inches is good. I think 6 inches
fine.
Would be what I would
I'd be fine with 3. Put it 3 inches away. It's fine.
I might move mine back a little bit. I don't know why it just looks good that this far out. I think it's because if not, I gotta move my screen up about 4 inches.
Uh-huh.
Once that's done, then I will move my center channel back a little bit and time for recalibration. By the way, Force Awakens liked it better the second time.
All right.
Saw that this weekend. That was exciting. All right, next.
He also asks, how important is it that his side surround speakers be close to ear level? He has his on-wall Polk speakers mounted quite high and close to the ceiling, but he doesn't have any way to angle them down on the mounts that they're on. To lower, he may have to remount them. Should he be concerned at all, and how much should he be concerned if he should?
This is one of those things where I go, well, how's it sound?
Right.
Are you worried about it? Because, frankly, if the timbre of it isn't that bad, I wouldn't worry because, it's a surround speaker anyways. Angling it down would be, I don't even know if I would say it was preferable. Lowering them might be preferable, but I wouldn't worry too much. It's supposed to have a diffuse sound or a more diffuse sound. So having them not pointing at your head is kind of preferable.
Yeah, and I mean, he was asking if you should have them at ear level, and I know Dolby
are liars.
I know they're now saying that that's what they recommend.
Nope.
But I disagree with them. And thankfully I have THX on my side, so I'm not just screaming that into the wind. We have some actual certification people who are like, nah, you still want your surround speakers elevated. Now he's got them up quite high. He's got them the bottom of them is 6 feet off the ground. The top of them is 7 feet off the ground right up by his ceiling because it's a drop ceiling in a basement. So it's a 7-foot ceiling. So they are up maybe a little bit higher than I might have mounted them to begin with, but I'm less worried about having them that high than I would have been about having them at ear level.
Yeah.
To me, ear level is a bigger problem than having them that high. So I don't know, is it worth poking another hole in the wall and moving the mount? Just
it wouldn't be for me. It definitely wouldn't be for me. So I agree. I would
when you buy all new speakers, then maybe mount the new surround speakers so that they're a foot and a half or 2 feet above your head. The tweeter we're talking about.
Yeah.
The tweeter of the speaker, a foot and a half.
And leave those other speakers up there and call them
Oro
3D or Atmos
surround
speakers.
height speakers.
You'd be the only person anybody knows ever that has an Oro 3D set up. You would be it. You would be the guy.
Oh, there's some folks in the UK. I know it.
Those people are crazy anyways. All right, next.
Scott is in the process of upgrading his aunt and uncle's living room audio from a Yamaha Pre-Pro 4.0 system from the 1980s.
That's a quadraphonic sound system.
It is.
Quadraphonic sound. Quad 106.5, is that the channel that was in Sacramento? That was the first and maybe only quadraphonic radio station that was out there. I used to listen to that station all the time. Quadraphonic sound. Just broadcast for your car because I guess I don't know.
There's four speakers in a car.
There are.
There certainly can be.
Yes.
And he's also stopping them from using Bose PC speakers plugged directly into their TV.
Uh-huh. Good job, Scott. That is a good move.
Yeah. So he's bought a Marantz in our 1606 from Accessories for Less with new
Lovely.
speakers and a sub to be bought soon.
Okay.
But since it's still a 4.0 system right now, which upmixer does a better job with 4.0? DTS Neural X or Dolby Surround?
Well, it's a Marantz, so you don't really have a choice. With the Denon and the Marantzes.
I think he means not the Neural X, just TTS.
Yeah, probably.
Neo
He said
X.
Neural
Well, the 1606 doesn't come with Neo X, though.
How's it not come with Neo X? They all come with Neo X. It's like a million years old.
It doesn't come with Neo X because it is yet to be released. The DTS X firmware update for the 1606, the DTS X firmware update for any
No, Neo X, the old.
I know, but they didn't pack it in there on that model because they're like, well, the DTS X will come, so then it'll get Neural X when it does.
Oh.
So on Denon and Marantz, they did a thing where if it's a Dolby signal, it uses Dolby Surround Upmixer. If it's a DTS signal, it will, when it comes via firmware, use the DTS Neural X Upmixer. You don't have a choice in the matter unless you send PCM. So if you're sending PCM audio, then you can use either or. For a 4.0 system, ain't going to sound any different.
Yeah.
The Neural X Upmixer, if you have overhead speakers, it seems like it gooses them. It makes them a little louder, so you notice.
Well, he might be talking about stereo to surround.
Yeah, stereo to 4. Yeah, they sound the same.
I would say, the difference is probably going to be negligible.
Yeah.
I found that, like, every once in a while, I look at my receiver, I'm like, huh, Dolby, who knew? I mean, I'm supposed to be a professional, I swear, but I look at it and I'm like, oh, look at that. So much of this hobby that we all love, and we do love it, and it's important to us. And like, where can I get the absolute best sound? How can I get the absolute best sound? But in the end, in actual usage, most of it is barely audible.
Yeah.
Most of the time. Yeah. When it is audible, it will drive you up the frickin' wall. It will absolutely kill you. But most of the time, you're not going to notice it. Most of the time. And that's sort of what I've resigned myself to in this hobby, is that what I want to do for myself and for you is get you to the place where you're never going to get bugged by your audio system. You're never going to get to go, how come there's pixels on this? How come it's pixelated on the screen? How come it's overblown or oversaturated? How come my speakers are doing, or the surround backs are being used instead of the surrounds? How come this? How come that? We want to fix that. But the difference between DTS and Dolby as far as going from stereo to surround, you'll never know. None of us will ever know.
This was his parent system who were going to be happy with Bose PC speakers connected to their TV. They will never, ever be able to tell the difference between DTS upmixing and Dolby upmixing. There is no chance.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It really doesn't matter. Totally doesn't matter. In fact, I bet this is what's going to happen. God help you if this comes true. This used to happen to me all the time. I would set stuff up for them for people, and I'd walk back into their house and go, "What's going on?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, we found this new surround mode. It's really awesome.
All channel stereo.
All channel stereo.
Mm-hmm.
5-channel party mode. It's like 5 channels of the same thing coming out of every speaker. You're just like,
but they can really hear those back speakers now. The voices are coming from back there now. Didn't used to do that before.
It's like being in everybody's head. It's so immersive. Yeah. Just make sure all the speakers work, and then go through, set it up, and hit the setup lock, and don't tell them. Hit the setup lock and don't tell them you did it.
Still doesn't stop you from pressing the listening mode button, but...
Oh, God help us. Go on.
He also has some questions about his system.
Okay, good.
He's replacing his TV stand and will be wall mounting his TV. So for running power, he's seen the PowerBridge in-wall power connector extension, but do we know of any alternatives to that?
Yeah, I mean, there are. None of them are cheaper.
Yeah. How much is that one?
Isn't that in the like $40 to $50 range?
I think my dad just got that because he asked me how he was supposed to do this. I was like, I went to Amazon, blink, and then sent it over to them, and it was like 40 or 60 bucks, whatever I sent them. So it's in that range.
Yeah.
So they're all sort of in that range. Don't spend more than $100 on this thing. Basically, all it is, and it's really hard to wrap your head around this. It's just an in-wall extension cord. That's all it is. So what you're doing is taking the power cord, plugging it into a plug that you put right behind the TV, then running Romex down the wall to another plug, which you will plug another power cable in, and then take that power cable and plug it into your surge protector or to your APC or to. Frankly, you could plug it right into your wall. You know, like
you do a wall outlet. That's right.
Yeah, my dad's wall outlet is right next to this thing. Yeah. So it's really easy to think, where is this whole system going to get power? And how do I get it power? And then say, oh, well, there's a wall outlet right here. I'll wire power from the wall outlet into this other outlet thingy over here that is in the bottom, you know, of this thing, and then that'll run power up. And like, well, you've just bypassed your surge protector by doing that. So think of it as an in-wall extension cord. As long as you think of it that way, then you'll be okay. But yeah, these things are great. Make for a super clean setup. They're not hard to install. The Romex is cheap as chips. Go to a lot of times at places like Home Depot and Lowe's, they'll have like off cuts of Romex. Don't buy a full 50-foot whatever spool it is. Try to see if you can just find 6 feet of it that they'll sell you for cheap. And I think you probably, some of these you have to provide the backer boxes, some of them you don't, but you'll have to get the right backer box for it, and that's it. It's really
retrofit backer box. Yeah. So I mean, Monoprice does have an option. It's no cheaper. It's $45, so same ballpark. And Sanis, who had their own before, but theirs was like over $100. Guess what? Theirs is now the PowerBridge system. It's just rebadged because they wanted to be price competitive. So, yeah, honestly, I mean, the PowerBridge, if you want to buy the Sanis branded version of it, okay, but it's no different, and the price isn't any different, and the Monoprice isn't any cheaper. So I think you already found your solution. Yeah.
All right.
His current TV is a 65-inch Panasonic Plasma, and his audio is 6.1 with a Phantom Center. But in the future, he may have a larger TV and an actual center speaker. Since he doesn't know what dimensions either of those might be, he wants to future-proof by using a TV mount with as much vertical shift as possible to avoid potential placement problems later. Do we have any recommendations for mounts that can support the 93-pound TV that he has right now that have as much vertical shift as possible? He'd like something like the Omni Mount Play 70, which has 20 inches of shift, but can only hold 70 pounds.
This is trickier because if you look at TV wall mounts, even the ones that call themselves like full motion wall mounts, those are usually swivel, extension, tilt.
They're not up and down.
Up and down. That is a little bit unusual.
The one that Clint's got, now this is the thing, the one that Clint's got is made to go, and you can maybe Google this, made to go over a fireplace, but then you pull it out and down, so it's in front of the fireplace when you're watching. Now, it looks frankly awful, because when you pull it out and down, you can see the little telescoping thing and the telescoping, whatever it is, and it doesn't look very good. It doesn't give you that really clean look that you're looking for, but it can come up and down that way. Yeah, first of all, you're never going to have to worry about having another 93-pound TV, I think, because I don't care how much bigger you go, they're not going to get. It's not going to be 93 pounds again. I think plasmas were always the lead bricks of TVs, other than of course your large CRTs. Yes. But yeah, you know, OLEDs and LCDs are just infinitely and quite a bit lighter, so you don't have to worry too much about that. Yeah, frankly, the hard part is going to be finding the thing with the right tilt. But really, I don't know that you need 20 inches. 20 inches is like a huge amount, really.
No, but the problem is it's kind of feast or famine, because these just don't really exist. You've got the Omni Mount Play 70, which is intended for TVs a bit smaller than this. I mean, just the design, it's a single arm right? So it's a single arm on basically ball-bearing joints on both ends.
Yeah.
So it's all friction held. I mean, there's gas inside of the arm, but it's basically friction held. So when they say max of 70 pounds, they're more like, do you have a 50-pound TV? Because that's kind of what we're aiming for. So they're more meant for smaller monitors that you need to be able to move all around, right? That's kind of what the OmniMount was intended for. So there is a company called Dynamic Mounting. That's the one that Clint, I don't know if it's the one Clint has, but it's the over the fireplace, bring it down lower type of thing. And they also have ones that go up and over if you're starting with it low and then swing it upward. But you're looking at like $500 for this thing. Now, it can hold up to 125 pounds, so it'll definitely do the job. And they have like 30 inches of range on the thing. So there's plenty of vertical range on it. They're kind of the go-to for this, but it's definitely an expensive option. But
yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
It's the only game in town.
Yeah, and wow, they were used by the Property Brothers, so clearly. Yeah. Yeah, it would almost behoove you not to worry about this. Get the mount that you need for now, and then just wait until you get a new TV.
Yeah.
And
remount it with whatever you need for the center speaker. Because the other thing is some TVs have more bezel on the lower, like some of them have like a speaker on the bottom, but others don't, right? So you don't always know how much of the height of the TV is going to be stuff that they put on the bottom or a thick frame or something like that. So yeah, this is tricky. The other thing is if you were to do this, then you'd want to err on the side of mounting it higher than you might think and then lowering it for the time being, right? Like you wouldn't want to mount it where you want it and then say, well, I can go even lower and then be like, but it was already too low to fit the center speaker. So you'd want to mount it like pretty darn high and then bring the thing down. I don't know.
I would, yeah. Mounts are exactly.
Wall mounts can be so cheap, like just regular wall mounts.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, for the mount that you would pay for the special wall mount, you could get yourself 2 separate mounts.
Yeah.
And probably pay somebody to do it for you.
Yeah, and patch the wall when you need to later.
Well, if you're getting a bigger TV, you probably won't have to patch the wall anyways.
Yeah.
You'll be able to cover. The TV will cover it anyhow. So.
There you go.
All right. I lost my place. Where are we at?
Michael.
So Michael followed our advice for the first Odyssey measuring position, but only measured in 4 total positions because he only has 4 seats. We recommended 6 positions, he said. Nah. Is it okay that he only measured in 4 seats? He hopes it is, because if we suggest that he remeasure again with 6, he'll be in the doghouse with his wife.
Okay. Now, first of all, I don't remember saying 6. I don't remember saying that.
No, I think it's just that it can. I mean, his version of Odyssey can measure 6.
Yeah, and really what you want to do is measure right around that 1 seat anyways. You're not really going for all, like in the middle of 4 separate seats. Let's put it this way. Wherever you measured is good enough. Let's just leave it there and step away. All right? 6 months from now, email us again and say, well, how am I supposed to do this again? And then we'll tell you again, and then you can do it again with your wife when she won't be in the doghouse if you're really worried about it. But if it sounds okay right now, fine. It's fine.
Yeah,
step away.
Michael was mostly worried. He was playing around with that Android SPL meter app last week, and he was mostly worried about his distances and levels, and then, of course, all the crossover settings, which is coming up next. But he was concerned about those things, and so I emailed him back, and I was like, what really matters is getting that first measurement correct, because Odyssey more or less nails the levels and distances.
Right.
It's really rare that it gets those wrong, as long as measurement position 1 is done well. And that means having it where the phantom center should be, not necessarily your favorite seat. It's equidistant from the front left and right speakers, centered in between them, and with at least 1 foot of free air all around it. So do not put the microphone on your seat back. Do not put it on a little stand that is right close to the seat back or in the seat like some people have done. I know. Make sure that it's more or less at ear level, but that it has at least 1 foot of free air all around it. If you do that with measurement position 1, don't worry if some SPL meter app tells you that, it's 80 dB when you play the test tones instead of 75. Like, no, Odyssey pretty much nails those things. And then the remaining measurements are just to do spatial averaging. So keep them all within about 2 feet of that first measurement position. Doesn't really matter what direction, just keep them all within about 2 feet. And that's it.
By the way, your prime seat should be at that place that he said, right directly in front of the center channel and stuff like that.
The problem is when they say put the microphone in your primary seat for measurement number 1, it's like, no, you want to put equidistant from the front, left, right, centered between them, which isn't everybody's primary seat. It should be, but it isn't always.
Yeah. All right.
He's also still confused by what we've said about the 75 dB reference volume. As he understands it, reference volume is what commercial theaters go for, but since most people find that to be too loud, in home theater we calibrate to 0 dB. Is he misunderstanding? And how is he supposed to measure for this?
Yeah, I'm misunderstanding a bit.
Yeah. Okay. So if you were measuring 0 dB, you'd be measuring silence. To start with, 0 dB is no sound. So we have on our receivers a relative scale. Relative being we have reset 0 to mean 75 dB or reference volume or whatever it is. And therefore, if you're 10 dB negative, you are listening at 10 dB lower than what reference volume was when you set up this thing. And then if you're 10 over, then it's 10 dB louder than on average or whatever it is. So yes, 0 is 75. 75. First of all, don't use that app. Second, when you measuring the 75 dB, you're measuring the test tones. The test tones will be at 75 dB, which is what they're setting up the receiver to be.
Yeah. So I mean, it all comes down to we got to think about what the word reference mean. Reference just means a point of reference. Yes. This is something where we can all agree that everything should be equal to this reference point. It's an arbitrary thing, but there are separate things going on. So there's when they're making the recording, they are in a mixing studio or on the dubbing stage and they're making the movie and they're saying, here's how relatively loud all these sounds should be to one another. And they had to pick a reference level. So reference volume is defined as being an average of 85 decibels in any individual speaker channel, with peaks as loud as 105 decibels in any individual speaker channel, except for the low frequency effects channel, which is its own separate dedicated channel, that can have peaks as loud as 115 decibels. And that's just the reference level. So when they're mixing and mastering the original recording, they're saying, all right, every speaker channel should average to 85. Peak should never be louder than 105 in any single given channel or 115 in the LFE channel.
And how they measure that is they have every channel in a program, probably Pro Tools is probably what they use, is what they mostly use. A lot of them do, yeah. And they just press a little button and say, what's the average? And what's the max, what's the min, and the computer tells them what it is. That's how they do it. You're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to sit there with an SPL meter in your hand while a movie's going on and know that you're getting 85, I misspoke earlier, 85 dB reference average volume over time.
It's changing from moment to moment.
That's right. And movies, particular movies or particular consoles or particular receivers or whatever might be a little hot or a little cold or whatever. It should be all the same. Should be. But you know that when you plug in your Blu-ray player, you're getting one thing. When you plug it in your Comcast box, you're getting something else.
And it is all some things are remixed for the home. So you're not getting the exact same audio that went to the theaters as at home. So a lot of movies, they've actually remixed it for the home, and they've made it quieter in the reference mix. They've made it a little bit quieter. But the whole idea of the reference volume when they're making the content is to say, if I put some sound effect in the surround channel, I want to be able to hear it. Now, if you're playing everything at a reference volume, that means, okay, I know how loud that sound in that channel is relative to all the other sounds. But if I play it at a quieter playback level, now my nonlinear human hearing comes into things, and I don't know how relatively loud it is anymore, because if things are only playing at 65 dB, then if it's deep bass, it's going to sound way quieter to my nonlinear human ears, even though in terms of actual numbers of decibels, it's the same difference, but my ears don't hear it that way. So that's why we came up with this reference volume. We can all reference to the same level so that we hear what we're supposed to hear. Then if you turn it down, that's where a thing like Odyssey Dynamic EQ comes into play, because it says, okay, I recognize you are listening at a level that is 10, 20, whatever it is, decibels quieter than full reference volume. But I'm going to play with the sound so that the things you're supposed to be able to hear, you're still able to hear. That's exactly the job that it's doing, which is why we like dynamic EQ, because then we don't have to listen at full reference volume, but we still get to hear all the things we're supposed to hear. So that's what's going on with reference volume.
So there is no measuring it. You're setting up your receiver by measuring the 75 dB, which again is 10 dB lower than reference volume because no one wants to sit in a room with 85 dB blaring at them.
Yeah, it's just a test tone. Yeah.
It's just a test tone which tells the receiver at the place where you are sitting, at that place, this is how much power they have to give the speakers in order to hit 75 dB, which tells them how much power they have to hit 85 dB
and 105
and 105 and all that other stuff. So that's all you're doing. So you don't have to worry about getting reference volume. You don't sit there and think, oh, I need to measure this to make sure I'm getting reference volume. I almost never listen at 0 dB in my home theater. I am usually about -10.
Sure.
Sometimes there's a lot of people in here, and I'm trying to be impressive, and it's something with a lot of bass. I'll goose it to -5, but that's crazy loud in this room.
Yeah.
And I'm not thinking to myself, I'm not getting reference volume. I'm thinking, damn, it's loud in here, and I think I just broke something with the subwoofers again. So, and that's all it is. So just don't worry about trying to hit this magical reference volume as being a thing. It's not something that you have to worry about or measure.
Odyssey does it for you.
That's right.
That's the key. It nails it. Yeah.
All right, lastly from him.
Also, why have we said that the crossover for the main should be set to 80 Hertz, but the low-pass filter for LFE should be set to 120 Hertz?
Uh-huh.
Isn't this going to lead to some bass being completely lost due to the offset in the roll-off point?
I hate this acronym. I hate it because it's completely confusing to everybody.
Yes.
And I wish they
shouldn't even be there.
Shouldn't be there.
Shouldn't even be there.
There is no point to ever adjusting this. All right, tell them what it is, because I always get it all flubbed up in my head.
So it comes back to what I was saying, that the LFE, the low frequency effects channel, is its own separate channel, just like your center channel is a separate channel from your front left and right channels. You can have sounds that play only in the center channel. You can have sounds that play only in the low frequency effects channel. The LFE is not your subwoofer output. The LFE channel does not have to be played by a subwoofer. It could be mixed into other speakers, just like your center channel does not have to be played by a center speaker. It could be mixed into your front, left, and right speakers. So there's the separation between channels and the speakers that play them. So given that the LFE channel is its own separate channel, it has this low-pass filter, and that means that sounds below this frequency are played and sounds above that frequency are filtered out of it. It's its own completely separate channel, and it's saying you can play all the way up to 120 hertz, and then you start to get quieter and quieter. That has no bearing, none, on any of the other speakers, because it is its own dedicated channel. So it's just like if you took your center channel and you said, I'm giving my center channel a crossover of 100 hertz, but I'm giving all my other channels, my front, left, and right, my surrounds, I'm giving all of them a crossover of 80 hertz. Having that 100 hertz set for the center channel doesn't affect any of the other speakers. It's only that one channel. So if you separate low frequency effects channel from all the other channels and don't think of LFE as subwoofer, because it isn't, then it all makes sense. It's like, okay, it's its own separate thing. It's got its own separate setting. It shouldn't even have it, because everything is standardized to it playing up to 120 hertz and then filtering off. So I don't even know why they give you the setting. But that's what causes the confusion. So the difference between channels and speakers, that's why.
So he's currently set up with his LPF for LFE set to 80 hertz.
No.
And his towers are crossed over at 40 hertz. So should he change that?
Yes.
Yes.
Change the towers to 80 and the other one back up to 120.
That's right.
And you'll be good.
Done.
Yeah. All right, John.
No, Steve.
No.
Steve. Oh, I was looking at John.
Steve the Geek.
Oh, yeah. Steve the Geek. Oh, sorry, Steve.
He's itching for a 4K projector, but there aren't many options.
No,
Do
there
we
are
have
not.
any opinions on how well JVC's E-Shift works? He's on the
Works pretty good.
fence because of all this. Should he buy a projector now or wait for real 4K models?
Wait.
I would wait.
Oh, wait. Please wait. Yes.
Yeah, because this is what's going to happen. You're going to buy this E-Shift thing, and like next year, you're going to be like, why? Why did I wait? Oh, the HDR and the Dolby Vision and the
Yes.
the true 4K and lasers, all the lasers. You'll say you should have waited, and you'll be like, but I wanted it.
Yes.
No, wait.
No, this is similar to buying the very first HDR flat panels that came out at like the very tail end of 2014. It's like, yeah, the projectors are not fully baked yet. Yes, the JVC projectors, they can show you 4K content. They're using a 1080p panel, but they're wobbling it back and forth to give you pseudo 4K. And honestly, as far as resolution goes, it looks pretty darn good. People say, okay, the Sonys that are out there, like the 665 or the higher end models, more expensive. Genuine 4K panels, they're like, oh, it looks a little bit sharper, but it's like, the resolution is barely the thing that you even care about. It's the HDR, and the JVCs are compatible with HDR10, but they don't really have a wider color gamut. None of the projectors out there do Dolby Vision yet. It's like, but all of that stuff's coming. They've got 4K DLP single chip. That chip has been developed now. It's a wobbled panel, but it's still a 4K DLP chip. But it's been developed now. Those will be coming out. Epson's going to be releasing a new laser-driven projector to replace the LS10000. Sony's going to keep going with their 4K projectors. JVC's going to keep going, probably introduce a genuine 4K projector. They'll get the wider color gamuts if they're using lasers. They'll get Dolby Vision. It's like, it's all coming. It's all coming. Just wait. Just hold your horses.
Yes, and next year we get to tell you to wait again until the prices come down.
Yeah,
But that's
probably,
just the way it's going to be.
But at least there'll be something to buy that actually has Dolby Vision. So.
That being said, I mean, remember, we told people to wait on receivers,
Yes.
and then now we're telling people buy.
That's right.
So we're not going to constantly say wait. We're going to say wait until it becomes a good time to buy it, and then we're going to tell you. It's just not ready yet. We all want it to be, but it's not. Even if you have all the money, it would still be very hard for you to have a decent option out there right now.
Yeah.
All right, John.
John has been happy with his Rhythmic LV12R sub until now.
Oh.
The opening of Edge of Tomorrow, which actually I guess is live, die, repeat now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Causes the Rhythmic to bottom
Wait,
out.
Was that movie ever called The Edge of Tomorrow?
Yeah, it was called Edge of Tomorrow when it released theatrically.
It should have been called All You Need Is Kill, right? Wasn't that the original title?
Yeah, that's
which is way better.
All You Need Is
Live, die,
Kill.
repeat's dumb.
Whatever.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyway.
I like that movie, by the way.
Yeah, is that right?
It was
Yeah.
all right. But
film
the
plot.
opening of it causes the Rhythmic to bottom out. So now he's looking to upgrade his sub.
Servo subs aren't supposed to do that. Whoops.
I know. I wonder if it's really bottoming out or if it's just making bad noises.
It's making.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's making bad noises. I don't know if it's actually bottoming out.
Yeah.
Servos aren't supposed to do that.
I
If
know.
it's making a bad noise like that, though, it may have damaged itself trying not to bottom out.
God.
I was trying to remember. I can't remember
Pulled a
what the
hammy.
opening of that movie is. So I'm not even sure what it is he's talking about. But
Well, I'm sure it's an explosion. I mean, it's got to be. I mean, it's the same fight scene over and over again. He gets bled on by an alien, right?
yeah.
So yeah. I don't know.
So he
Anyways, go on.
listens at 15 dB, negative 15 dB,
Okay.
with Odyssey having set the trim to negative 3 dB, and the knob on the sub is set to the 10 o'clock position. And his room's 13 by 18 by 8.
Man,
Well-
he should not be bottoming out.
No.
Really,
10 o'clock.
really
10
should.
o'clock. What's max volume on those things? It's usually around what, like 4? Isn't it go like from
Yeah,
from like 8
5,
to
yeah.
4, something like that? So
Yeah.
10? He's not even got it that loud. Your subs done did get broken somehow. You need to call Rhythmic. There's something wrong with that thing.
Yeah, there's no way it should. I mean, bottoming out is almost like smacking sound.
It sounds like a clang. It is
Yeah.
clang, clang, clang. I mean, I don't know that it's bottoming out.
It shouldn't. Really shouldn't.
I would get some really low test tones and play them
Yeah.
and walk around my room and see if it's coming from the sub when it hits one of those low notes, you will know it.
I mean, if it's just kind of a boof, boof, boof sound, then that could be the port.
That's a port, yeah. It is rear ported 12-inch sub. It is their entry level sub, so could very well be that it's being overtaxed in some way.
It's a
but not
pretty good sub.
Yeah, I would not expect this based on what you're telling us. So maybe record the sound. That'd be nice. I'd like to hear it. All right.
But in any case, he wants something that can give him some infrasonic bass that he can feel. He's read that the lower the frequency, the louder it has to be in order for it to be felt. So
more or less. Yeah.
What level of volume would he need to truly feel something at, say, 16 hertz? Maybe even 8 hertz? Is 8 hertz even safe?
Yeah.
He's willing to spend around $2,000. So
wow, that's a good budget.
That's all the subs. You could just pick one. What's the one you like the best? Or two. First of all, I don't think that your sub is bottoming out. I think that you're having. He's got his room is 13 by 18 by 8, so it's not that big of a room. If it's enclosed, dude, I have with the entry level, the NSD 12, whatever there was, the
above the
PC12,
entry,
one above the entry level in here, and the SVS sub, and it crushes in here. Now, as far as first of all, I think your sub should be able to pressurize your room just fine. It shouldn't be bottoming out. If it is making a weird noise, it's not bottoming out. So you need to figure out what that is.
There are a plethora of settings on those rhythmic subs.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if it's making actual clanging sounds, then the thing has damaged itself because the servo shouldn't even allow it to do that.
No, it shouldn't.
So in that case, contact rhythmic. If it's just a woof, woof, woof sound coming out of the port, then try setting, there's a thing to allow it to play all the way down to 14 hertz. Try setting that to the thing that, more or less cuts it off at 20, because that will actually sound better. Right? There are some soundtracks out there that contain infrasonic signals that are below 20 hertz. Some people like to attempt to play those. It's very questionable, in my opinion, as to how important that actually is. But okay, some people want to hear the 10 hertz flutter of a helicopter thing when it comes by for 2 seconds.
Or the U571 depth charge scene.
Yeah. So, I mean, to actually get those things, I mean, at 20 hertz, the minimum threshold for you even hearing that is about 80 to 85 decibels. It's right in that range, which is one of the reasons reference volume is set there. To get lower than that, you can't hear it. You will never hear it.
Yeah,
your ears cannot pick it up. You do not have the little hair fibers to actually respond to those frequencies. But to feel the air move around you, I mean, it has to just physically move the air. I mean, that is a matter of sound pressure, but you can't really put a number on it. But it's somewhere north of 85 dB. That you have
which will be in the soundtrack anyways. If you're hitting 105 peaks, you're going to be able to hear these, experience these sounds you should be able to with your sub. Yeah. You should be able to.
But I will say, like the SVS, like the PC13 Ultra, the cylinder sub, which is under $2,000, it has a 15 hertz extension mode, and Josh Ritchie over at database.com, he measured that thing, and it was putting out close to 105 dB at 16 hertz. Wow. So if you want to do it, the Ultras can do it. It was putting out more bass below 20 hertz than even the Rhythmic FV15 HP, which can play louder in the 40 hertz and 50 hertz region, which is that kick drum hit you in the chest region, which is why a lot of people prefer that sub over the SVS Ultras. But the SVS Ultras can actually play that loud, that low, thanks to their DSP chips. If you're worrying about getting down to 10 hertz, then even the SVSs can't really do that for you. Well, they can. They put out like 80 dB at 10 hertz.
Yeah, but there's not going to be enough content for you to even care, really. That's down at 10 hertz. On top of that, there's you can get those fans that put out infrasonic fans or whatever. First of all, call Rhythmic at your sub. Figure out what's wrong with your sub.
Yeah.
They should troubleshoot with you and figure that out. Then go back through and listen to this scene again and figure out whether or not you need it. You need a second sub anyways. If you're willing to spend this much, you do not need. I mean, if you really want to hit these really low hertz, you're gonna have to buy something big like the PC 13 or one of the other ones. But you're gonna need a big sub to get down that low. But you're gonna barely turn that thing on. It's like gonna be like just above off is where the volume is going to have to be on this thing. It's going to be off plus 0.5 is where it's going to be to pressurize your room. So, like with me, these things play down to 18, something like that. Yeah. Probably a little bit lower in room. I don't really know. And it just didn't make sense for me to have a bigger sub in a room this size. It certainly doesn't make any sense in my mind. The PC 2000 would be more than adequate for what your space. It would be. It would just crush in there. Would it get all the way down to 14 hertz? Yeah, no. But it'll get down to 18. Yeah, it might get down to 17. So, to me, that's good enough. That's what I would do. I would buy 2 PC 2000s and call it a day.
Yep.
Or I might buy one and just pair it with my newly fixed Rhythmic. All right, next.
Greg on Twitter asked, before he sends in actual questions,
he's going to do his homework?
Do we have any websites we'd recommend for advice on how to set up a home theater?
I did.
Rob does, of course. He's got tons. Which we will post all the files, but they're, GIC, Soundproof Company, THX, Harman, Dolby, some YouTube links, stuff like that. That's right.
Yeah, so what you wanted to do, because I'm not going to go through all of these individually, just if you come to avrant.com, that's where we post all the links to things that we talk about, products we recommend, or links that we talk about, or articles that we reference. So come to avrant.com. I'll have the list that I also tweeted back over to Greg. So yeah, if you're looking for the basics on how to set things up, then yeah, those will be the ones to go to. THX, Dolby, Harman, they got the goods.
Yup. The thing to remember too, when you're looking at these things, is a lot of them have agendas. So they are helpful, but they have their agenda, which is we are asking you. We think that you should put up lots of soundproofing or lots of, room treatments because we sell room treatments. Oh, we think that all your gear should be THX certified. I don't think they do that anymore because I don't think anything's THX certified anymore. But something along those lines. Or we mix our movies in this way, therefore you should put your speakers up in this way, in that sort of thing. That being said, so just realize there's going to be just some discrepancies between what DTS says, what Dolby says, what THX says, what one sound company says versus soundproofing or sound absorption company says versus another. Just get an idea of what they're all sort of agreeing on, and then I swear to God, use common sense. And don't worry if they're like, oh, it must be exactly here. You're like, well, I can't put it there because of this. Because I'll tell you what I'm going to say right now. Don't put it there. Put it wherever you can. It's close enough. It's good. It'll be fine. So, yes. Just take everything with a grain of salt. Next.
Michael currently has a 2.2 setup using Ascend CMT 340 SE mains and a pair of HSU VTF2 Mark IV subwoofers, with one at the front of the room and one at the back of the room.
Yay!
He sits about 10.5 feet from the speakers and has about 6 feet of space behind to the rear wall.
Okay.
He'd like to explore using acoustic panels. He's read that putting absorption behind the front speakers is a good place to start. Would we agree in his particular room? Which he has pictures for us, but he asked they not be shared. So
this picture is supposed to be a sphere. I'm supposed to be able to press on this and 360 this bad boy, except it's not working. Oh, that makes more sense because I was trying to figure out what he was talking about, but I see it now. This is a really nice room. It's it looks like maybe a basement maybe or a living room. It's really hard to tell. But he's got 2 speakers up front. He's got, it looks like subwoofers across from each other on the side walls.
He says they're at the front and back.
There's one in the rear left corner. of the theater area, and one in the front left corner of the theater area, because the left side of the room is open to like sort of a kitchen or dining area. So he has more or less centered the subs in the entire open space. And exactly like we've recommended, one at the front, one at the back. So that's great. Yay!
Yeah, okay. It's really hard to see this here because the sub's on both sides of the picture. The back sub is on both sides of the picture for me because I can't see the sphere.
No, I'm doing the full rotation thingy. So.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not working on my phone. Anyways, anyway, I forgot the question. What was the question?
Acoustic panels.
Is it a good idea to start with putting panels behind the front speakers? Or if not, what would we suggest as the first places to put panels in this room?
Well, since your left speaker seems to be open to the kitchen, diner, whatever that is area, I would put panels to absorb the first reflections on your right speaker.
Yes.
That would be the first thing I would do.
Yes.
I would get a nice thick panel, like a 4-inch one, or maybe thicker if you can. Anyways, I put that right there. Behind the front speaker, he's actually got some, it's carpeted floors.
Yep.
Very plush furniture, it looks like. These couches and stuff, and he's got like 3 of them.
Yeah, I don't expect this to be like a super echoey room. It's
I actually like the idea of putting some on the back wall, on the front wall, right there on that side wall, and calling it a day.
Yeah, I mean that side wall next to your front right speaker is position number 1 because the left side of your room is open.
That's right.
You want to try and equal out so that you're not getting strong reflections from your right speaker off the right wall and then very weak reflections from the left speaker because there's open space to the left of it. So that's the first place to go.
Right. Yes.
So he thinks he knows how to figure out where the first reflection points are.
Okay.
But he'd appreciate a refresher on exactly how to find them.
Get a mirror and a friend.
Yep.
Sit in whatever the prime seat or the middle between the 2 speakers where you would take your measurement. Is basically it. And then have the person walk down the wall at the speaker height, holding the mirror on the wall, kind of sliding it down, until you can see the speaker in the mirror.
Yep.
That's your first reflection point.
And if you want to just eyeball it, just think, where would I shoot a pool ball to bounce it off the wall and hit the speaker from where I'm sitting? Because that's what it is. It's a pool shot, bank shot.
That's it. That's it. Next.
Since he has carpet, does he need treatment on the ceiling?
I rarely think you need treatment on the ceiling, to be honest with you. But I don't know that carpet makes much of a difference unless you have carpet on the ceiling.
Well, it's having a hardwood floor and then a hard flat ceiling.
Yeah.
More bouncing, vertically between them.
I do not have acoustical panels on my ceiling. I have no intention. I don't know. I have an intention of putting some up there, but no desire to go through the hassle. Mostly because I might someday have ceiling speakers, so I don't know that I would bother putting them up there.
I mean, I do a clap test. That's what I do. You stand in your room at various areas in your room, smack your hands really quickly, so a quick clap, and if you hear a zing, so that's what you're actually listening for. If it goes doo in your room, that is a slap echo, and very often that's coming from your ceiling because that's usually your largest completely flat unbroken surface.
And if you want to experience this firsthand, next time you're in a bare office or a big conference room or whatever that doesn't have any sort of acoustical stuff in there, and there's nobody else in there, just clap a couple times to hear it. And then once you hear it, you're like, yep, that's in the brain. I never have to worry about that again. I will always know what that sounds like.
Yeah. So I do it that way. And if you're getting really bad zings when you do the clap test, then maybe consider putting something on your ceiling because that's usually the cause. But if not, then don't worry about it.
Yeah, I doubt that you're going to have to worry about it. Next.
You kind of already covered this one, but you recommended that he put panels on the back wall, but he thought maybe since he has so much space between the back of his seats and the wall, he might not need them.
Well, that's because we often recommend putting them on your back wall if you're sitting really close to the back wall to stop that echo right off the back wall. But that being said, having a little absorption sort of around the room in general is a good idea, and the back wall is a good place to that you can usually put some. So do you need them back there? Clap. And then just go ahead and put a couple of panels back there anyways, because they can't hurt.
Yeah.
What are the pros and cons of 2-inch panels versus 4-inch panels?
Well, the cons are that the 4 inches are more expensive and they're further off from the wall.
Thicker.
They're thicker because of that. I mean, that's neither a pro nor a con. That's just in the description. That being said, you get the same or very similar performance from a 2-inch panel that is off the wall 2 inches that you do as a flush mounted
air gap
with an air gap, as opposed to a 4-inch panel that's directly on the wall. So if you're looking for the best possible performance and you've only got 4 inches to deal with, you can either hang that panel off the wall by 2 inches, a 2-inch panel 2 inches off the wall, or flush mount a 4-inch panel, and you get basically the same performance. So, what do you want? What's your thing? If you're just looking for raw performance, the thicker panel absorbs sound better and lower sounds.
Yes,
than
it's
the higher
frequencies that are absorbed. The thicker the panel, or the more of an air gap that you have behind the panel, the lower the frequency it will affect. So if you're mostly wanting to deal with your bass and that, then you need a thicker panel. If you're only trying to get rid of some, direct echoes that are in higher frequencies, then the thinner panel will do the job. So it's getting lower the thicker you go.
That's the advantage of having the thicker panel. The disadvantage, of course, is that they're just physically larger and you have to deal with the placement. Yeah.
What companies would we recommend for high-quality panels, but at good prices?
GIK.
Yep, they're the first.
GIK. What's the other one that we've been talking about lately?
Well, there's Acoustimac.
Yeah, right. We talked about that.
They're okay. They're pretty good. Particularly if you want corner traps. They have some nice corner traps over at Acoustimac. There's making your own.
DIY it.
Quite a few people are doing these days.
Yep.
But honestly, I mean, GIK is where I go for mine. So very good. A very complete lineup of products as well.
They have a lot of products that you could use. And if you were looking,
really good advice.
And if you wanted to put something on your ceiling, they have their diffusion/absorption panel, which would be a good thing to put on your ceiling at your first reflection point in your ceiling. And yes, somebody's going to have to stand on a ladder and slide the mirror across the ceiling until you get to the point where you see the speaker. All right.
He used to have surround speakers on stands, but with a toddler running around now, that's no longer safe. He does have a pair of HSU HB1 Mark II speakers that he could mount to the back wall, though. Would it completely ruin the surround reproduction to have the surround speakers on the back wall? Should you just stick with the 2.2 he has, or would it not be so bad?
Well, it's better than nothing, but I don't like having the surround speakers behind me if I can help it. They really are meant to be put to the side. That being said, toddlers are not toddlers for that long, and I had my speakers on stands when I had toddlers, and all of my children are still alive without traumatic brain injury. So I take umbrage with the idea that just because there's some toddler running around that you can't have a speaker on the stand. You absolutely can't. You have to be vigilant, yes, you do. But my children could have cared less about those speakers. The only time they ever got in trouble with the speaker is my son, and I have a picture of this someplace. My son stuck his foot in a port and got it stuck, which was hilarious, and I took a picture of it. So that's because of the kind of father I am. But the stand speakers were fine. Now, what you could do, if you're really super worried about it, is you take your stands and you fill them up with whatever stuff that makes them super duper heavy. There's
kitty
lots
litter.
Of kitty litter is an option. There's all sorts of options out there. Fill it up, and therefore it'll be impossible for the little one to get it. And you could also, or you could get a stand. You could upgrade your stands to ones that actually clasp onto the bottom of the speaker.
Yes.
So if they do run into it, it will not topple over on top of them. Between those two things, you certainly can use stands for your surround speakers. As much as I like to give my kids a hard time, I certainly didn't want to see them crushed by a speaker. And not only because I didn't want my speakers to get hurt, but I just never ran into a problem with it. I never ran into a problem. I think maybe once in their entire little lives I said, don't touch that, and they were fine. Frankly, they're kind of off to the side and away from things, and they just sort of ignore them. You put the toys someplace else and they're fine.
Yeah,
but
I mean, to answer the question directly, having the surround speakers on the back wall, it's not the end of the world. There are worse things. It wouldn't completely ruin things. So, I mean, if you wanted to do it, and given that he's got a wide back wall where he could put the surround speakers like quite wide apart, and they just happen to be behind him instead of to the sides, it wouldn't be the end of the world. So if that's what you really want to do, I can get behind that.
Yeah.
Just have them elevated a bit. And yeah, it's not perfect placement, but it's certainly not.
Still gonna have to worry about the whole tripping hazard thing, but that's the tripping over a speaker. They could trip over the wires or however you're going to get them back.
Well, that's next, isn't it?
Oh, is it? I thought he was done.
He wants to avoid tripping hazards with the wires.
Yeah.
So he's thought about running them underneath the carpet.
Sure.
But he's not quite sure how he would do that.
Flat. Flat.
You don't even have to go flat. You could just well, I forgot what this room looked like. You could tuck them in like sort of underneath the baseboard.
Yeah, there's no like continuous path with baseboard.
Oh no, you could go right around. That's not true. You can go right around the bottom of the stairs, and down there. I don't know what's around that.
Across the front of the stairs, up and over the door that's on the other side of the stairs.
There's a door on the other side of the stairs. I can't see that.
I've done that.
I mean, you could.
My speaker wire, actually, you could pull off all the baseboards. I tuck them all in. And it goes the baseboards all around the door to the bathroom back here. I'm almost tempted to turn it so you can see it. This is how I got my surround right speaker. Is all through the baseboards on the floor because couldn't be bothered to do it another way. You could do you wouldn't want to do crown molding in this place because it's got that arch.
No.
But frankly, you don't want to pull up the carpet. You could theoretically find the splits, but they kind of they usually kind of iron those. I mean, they put that sticky crap on the bottom of the thing, and they sort of iron it together. So there's no really good way to really resplit the carpet, put it underneath, and then put on the tack strip. And even then, you're going to be crossing the tack strip at some point, which is that's just an accident waiting to happen right there.
I mean, what I'm thinking he could do, because what he basically has he has no left wall, so let's not go that direction.
Right.
He has a right wall, but there's a stairway on that right wall, and then there's of course a walkway to go past the stairway. So there's basically like a 3.5 foot gap from the front of the stair to his back wall. That's really the only span, because he can use the perimeter of the room to go around along that right wall, and then he just has to get across that 3.5 foot gap. If you put down some flat speaker wire and then just put a rug over top of it, like that covers up your tripping hazard. You could just have a rug go over top some flat speaker wire just to get across that 3.5
Oh, I hate
gap.
that idea. That's just going to look silly.
He's already got a rug there.
I know.
There's already a rug there, so that's what I would do. I'd don't even bother putting on the carpet. Just cover up some flat speaker wire with a rug.
You should just use the rug you got right now. Go straight to your couch. Go underneath your couch, and then to the surround speakers, which will be on stands right behind your couch, right into the center.
Tom's for the stands.
I am for the stands, but if you really don't use the stands, you could do what Rob said. We could take it right around the floorboards until you get to the stairs there, and you could pull up the carpet or
just that section,
poke a hole in the carpet and then feed it through. And then poke a hole in the other side and feed it back up and then back around to the side. That's probably your best, cleanest option. You may see a little wire getting stuck into your carpet right there. I would avoid those tack strips, because if you impale that wire, all this will be for naught, and you'll have to redo the whole thing. So I would go past the tack strip, poke a hole in my carpet, and put the wire in. I wouldn't worry about flat wire. I just get whatever, and then because you're not going to be able to really feel it underneath the carpet anyways, and just run it underneath the carpet. That's my suggestion.
There we go. Well, we are well over 2 hours, so we'll probably have to.
Are we really? Oh yeah, it's 11.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so who's next here? Who else? Is that Michael? No.
We got Tony K, Michael V, Jim W. And I know that Jefferson just wrote to us today. So, Jefferson, we do have yours.
All right, sorry it went so long, guys. We have technical issues, and I'm not looking at the screen, so I didn't see the time. So
we started a little late too, though. So.
Should have cut you guys off. There were little technical issues, but I think it wasn't too bad. Hopefully, I didn't say any bad words. Very possible that I did. But you guys said you could hear me. Or you couldn't hear me.
We could not hear you. We didn't hear anything going on there. So.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, could you see me?
Yep.
Oh, you see, I could see you guys, but I couldn't hear you, and it was really weird. So. Whatever. All right. So if you want to hear whatever they said about those things, that whatever they talked about, then you'll probably have to go to download the podcast yourself. You do that at well. First of all, let's thank our listeners of the week. We've got Jason, Michael, and Robert from Holland. Just Robert's from Holland, not the other two. With their donations. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it so much.
And Justin, Not Bieber, and Scott on their recommendations, or on their buying something and telling RBH and Accessories for Less about us.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks, guys.
All right. You want to get your question answered on the podcast, feel free to give us an email at rob@avrant.com, tom@avrant.com, and most importantly, question at avrant.com, which go to our producer, Austin. Facebook, you can hit us up at www.avrant.com, where you can leave us a donation, as did some of our listeners of the week, or leave a comment which we will answer on the podcast. Feel free to go to facebook.com/avrantpodcast, where we are active, as is our community. Twitter at First Reflect for Rob, at avrant_Tom for me, and at Austin Pond for Austin, our producer, who has his own podcast. It's the We Watch Movies podcast. We Watch Movies. What was that podcast about again, Austin? I forgot.
It is about collecting wicker furniture.
Wicker furniture. Popular. Now, do you ever watch movies in your wicker furniture?
I suppose you could. It's not really that comfortable for sitting in for long
see, that's
periods.
what I would have thought, too. It's really kind of weird, that title you guys have. I don't understand that. All right, please check that podcast out. It's extremely informative and wicker-tastic. For AV Rant, I'm Tom Mandring.
And I'm Rob H.
And I'm Austin Pond. Now go out and listen to something.